Hello, everybody. All zero of you according to my software, but it takes time to update sometimes. That's why it's kind of going like this. Hello. Make a like a hi, make a hiney ho. Haven't done my zombie impression in a while. All right. Let me make sure this is going on the other side here. There it is. Okay, mute that. All right. Great. Well, hey, I appreciate anybody joining. Do something really quick. All right, there, I got my window back. All right. So I wanted to talk tonight about the concept of what's called structural psychology and mass resonance manipulation. I had kind of heard of these concepts before I read the Defense Intelligence Agency report, but never to the degree of detail that that report contained. I read this report, well, I've read it multiple times, but I first happened upon it back in, I think, 2017, maybe 2016 timeframe, when there was a huge dump of declassified information on the Freedom of Information Act library on CIA.gov. Being a person that, I don't know, tends to tempt fate a little bit too much, perhaps, I got on the CIA.gov website and just went on a huge downloading spree of all of the declassified documents by doing keyword searches on things that I was personally curious to research relative to things that just have gone on in America that perhaps had been, I wanted to know at a deeper level based on my work experience. I was unfamiliar. I have about 2 decades, 20 years of radio frequency wireless engineering experience that ranges from being a like right down from, I mean, honestly, guys, I know the cell phone and wireless industry so well. I've pretty much done just about any job a person can do. That's really my range of experience. I'm not sure what else to tell people. If there was a job that could be done, I practically did it. I started off as an inventory clerk. I went in literally, guys, this is in the 90s. As an inventory clerk, I was seriously like managing large clusters of those big brick phones that Motorola used to sell, those 0.6 of a watt analog brick phones that they used to call brick because they were about as big as a brick and heavy as one. Those unfamiliar with how cell phones used to work, that's what it used to take. By the way, I was a customer of said brick phone before I ever worked in the industry, so I was aware of this. I used to be like a courier for a title company, so not having one of those cell phones made your life a lot more challenging than it needed to be. You're willing to spend a little extra money to have the phone. Anyways, but why is that relevant? I guess. My wireless industry experience kind of informs my curiosity about what was on that library. I wanted to take my wireless engineering experience and start drilling down as to what type of search terms that I might know from my unique work experience and my knowledge set that I could do these types of keyword searches on that would help me just find greater patterns of whatever. And I found that it was pretty effective at that. Hang on. I don't need this fan running constantly. It's kind of annoying. It's making my nose run too. There's something out there. All right. So taking my wireless industry experience, I just ran a lot of keyword searches that I knew were relevant to things that might be, more MK Ultra, but MK Ultra high frequency. That was my first kind of tip off. I started thinking about it like, what is it about that program MK Ultra that seems to get missed? Because why would they use the word ultra? It occurred to me that it has to be a reference to ultra high frequency. I really don't know. I mean, UL is also electricity. Tor ray, that could be it too. A 3-ring cipher that would absolutely work. Tor meaning tunnel because the signal's passed in a tunnel underground. Ray because it generates a ray, and a factor of X-ray, gamma ray is my understanding. but it passes radio frequency in an underground tunnel at a very high amplitude down a linear pathway. So my understanding is the way that some of these technologies work that are like industrial. How do I say this, guys? There's mass resonance manipulation. Like, it's one thing when it's just like some clever reporters that lie or manipulate the truth. I think that that's kind of one of those like gray area things that's increasingly becoming less gray, because we know the importance of the media to tell the truth is, well, guys, I mean, we can't keep denying that that it's not important. I mean, when, well, I'll give you an example. In my mind, what we should have learned from the whole thing with Charlie Savage was that, stories like that, it's really strange to me. If those unfamiliar, I'm talking about when when a reporter from the New York Times, Charlie Savage, created a story claiming that it was from these like intelligence sources within the Pentagon or something to that effect. Forgive me if I'm paraphrasing how it went down a little bit, but essentially was the main promoter of this narrative that Russia was paying the Taliban to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan. That's a really horrible thing to make an accusation about if it's completely untrue or has very little basis in reality, which in this case, nearly everybody, when questioned deeper, said that it completely lacked credibility. It wasn't even like a little bit true. And when somebody makes up a story that to that degree in order to basically, what else is the purpose, ladies and gentlemen, but to start a war with Russia? What else is the purpose but to create what is called a mass resonance manipulation event? This is the essence of structural psychology, and why we can't continue to say that what these reporters are doing is just simply every single time free expression. When it's industrial strength lying at this scale, you have to give it a closer review. It has to be something that you can't just keep allowing certain people to hide behind this sort of whatever. And again, we need to balance that with free speech. We need to balance that with the rights of reporters and journalists. I'm never going to suggest otherwise, because I'm in a situation where I should be in a culture where journalists will save the day. I should be in a culture where I can rely upon those, out there to help me as journalists and to be a bridge for my information into the public perspective, or just to simply find out, am I a fraud or am I real? I have just learned that even though I have very good information and I can show and prove who I am, and there's really nothing you can do to shoot holes in my information overall. It struck me as very strange that I would have like sometimes Twitter interactions that were pretty meaningful, which is to say where my information aligned with some reporter or a person who makes documentaries or something to that effect. And I just noticed that they'll just continue to move on. They'll be like, oh, okay, that happened. And then it's a little bit like the people that were into the Q thing, I just noticed again, like, it's just this consistent theme where the ones that are the main promoters of the narrative ignore information like mine, but are completely okay with things that are sort of loose and cryptic and coded, dancing around the topic instead of talking about it straightforward. And what's the purpose of that? I think that in the modern era, there's good and bad reasons why it happens, why people play with perceptions of the population. And again, it's not something that I'm a fan of. I don't do it, and I don't want it to be done. But yeah, I get it, that we're existing almost like now we're in a universe where the truth is so easy to learn based on data parameters, that what this group of people have decided to do to stay safe or to keep things secure in their minds is to just create so many, how do I say it? They're going to have a whole series of narratives that will fit any given topic, that will spin them all in a million different directions. But they're always managing each narrative to basically avoid it getting down to what the real issue is. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit like, I started figuring this out even more as this Portland shooting just happened, how bad the problem is relative to the corruption at all levels, guys. It's, you know, to think that you're just dealing with solely like street level, you know, SJWs that are out of control any more than you are dealing with corrupt cops that are out of control. Unfortunately, in Portland, what that last shooting spoke to was that there is something shady going on, but it's not like it's dirty cops beating up citizens as much as it is that there's some dirty cops that are within that group of very good cops that do in fact partner with some of those folks that are out there, and they're LARPing as much as some of those groups that are pretending to be on the left or the right, blah, 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 falling into that narrative, you know. This is when I really got hip to this, and I'm kind of going, whoa, because I know that that's a bogus name. I just know it because I know who it's connected to, and I know what it's designed to communicate overall. But then it occurred to me, sometimes these groups will fake something to that degree as a way to sort of say to everybody like, yes, I'm faking it. Will you please freaking help us over here? That's why we're doing it bad on purpose. You see what I'm saying, guys? I don't know when I'm dealing with one versus the other in many cases. So I try not to immediately draw a conclusion about it. I try to be a little bit more like thinking it like, okay, why might they be doing it badly? Why might they be doing it so obviously? Is it always to troll us? Is it always to simply like rub it in our face? I don't know. But I do know that there are times where, yeah, they will in fact kind of like do things, I don't know, intentionally bad as a way of disclosure. I wish I had a video clip of it because it's the perfect example. There's a film called Hot Shots Part 2, by the guys that made like Airplane and Naked Gun with Richard Crenna, where he gets basically captured by, I think, the Iraqi army. I think that's the movie that's more like a parody of Saddam and all those things, like Saddam Hussein and everything. Anyways, it's like a goofy action spinoff with Charlie Sheen. Those unfamiliar with it, it's just a goofy action movie and a goofy comedy, I should say, that spins off and mixes in all the different action movies from the 80s and 90s into one like goofy movie, including the Rambo series very heavily. But anyways, Richard Crenna's character is trying to, he doesn't want to like give these terrorists any type of like considerations, you know? So they're like going, I want you to read this letter on television and tell the Americans that you're being treated good. Now here's your script and do it well, you know? And of course, this is the guys that make Airplane and Naked Gun. So you know how like, you know, over the top this is going to be. So Richard Crenna is sitting there like looking at the teleprompter going like, he's like, you know, like, they're treating me excellent here. It's like the accommodations are amazing. It's like the food is incredibly appetizing. You know, like he's doing things like on camera that like kind of just like going, I'm not okay with this. I'm not a willing person, you know, like, so I started to try to like find the signs of that in more times, but it's just become increasingly, I don't know, guys. I try to give certain groups a little bit of that consideration. My problem is I did that for about 3 or 4 years now, and it hasn't really gotten anywhere. It hasn't really helped me. I thought they were doing it to protect their real identities as cover for the real people. And then it occurred to me that they're not using their cover identities to integrate my information into theirs either. So I kind of figured out that it's almost like it's manipulating my trust in certain people that I either grew up with or knew from a long time ago from various associations and relationships that had these acting connections behind the scenes that do these things. And so in some cases I was being a little bit, I guess you could say, played into not saying more than I knew. And so I can't just tell you guys the names of people except to say that there's some pretty main narrative characters that I don't know how I would tell you except just to say their name. It's like some of the things that have been going on. I told you guys last night, there's one of these characters that like Roseanne Barr's been talking to that everybody's all into, that I'm just telling you that I get that you can use voice masking software and things like that, but what I'm telling you is the person that I think that is, and I don't know because I can't see their face, but I do know this is a person that would be extremely conscientious, knowing how the face masking technology scales improperly on certain types of facial characteristics. This is one of those people that could not use face masking technology very effectively. I know this because I've seen people that try to use it and can't use it very effectively. Excuse me. So there's a guy that actually kind of tricked me into co-locating with him, and he uses this technology. And then after I discovered that he was doing this kind of crap, then it was just like trolling me all the time. Like, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? How are you ever going to prove it? I get that from all of them, by the way, guys. I mean, after they do it, I'll confront somebody and it's like going, okay, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Sometimes they're family members. I'm telling you, I know who's faking these things, guys. And I don't do it for your attention or for you to win your favor, because it honestly doesn't win me favor. That's been my problem. The thing I've observed on the internet here is that there's those types of characters all have a support group that'll basically go out and promote those narratives aggressively across all other platforms to steer your attention away from the truth and onto their characters. And if their characters were integrating people like me, I would butt out. I would say, you know something, maybe they are staying safe. Maybe they are doing whatever. And it's not about selfishness, guys. It's just simply that I can tell when my information and what I can reveal aligns with what they allege to care about revealing. And they just simply ignore it and don't do anything with it. And, that's when I just became pretty hip to how this is all really going, and I wanted to give you guys those unfamiliar. I know we talk a lot about like psychological warfare and psyops or whatever you want to say. And it's become such a general term that I don't think that people think enough about the science of why there is such a thing called structural psychology and mass resonance manipulation. What they've learned is that you can make the public do things on their own that they normally would never do by simply priming the pump psychoenergetically, which is to say LARPing, false flags, faked events. All of these things prime the public into responding in ways, especially if there's people out there going, do it like this, everybody. Hey, follow me, follow the leader. This is how you're supposed to express yourself when you're angry. Light this shit on fire, burn it to the ground. That's, beat this thing up, beat that person up, break that window. I saw all the signs of it, guys. I saw it immediately in Minneapolis when everything started up last summer. My first hint was, and I could tell this, guys, because there's this footage that started to appear of a guy in black bloc that looked pretty out of place in this neighborhood, as he did to most of the African Americans in said neighborhood. The black community weren't having it. They were looking at this guy going, hey, you trying to make it look like we're doing this, man. That's you. We see what you're doing. And he started aiming the camera at this guy, and he's just sitting there going like, busting out. I think it was either an AutoZone or a Target or something like that. But the footage is clear, and there's multiple clips of this guy talking to some other people. And I think they even identified him as potentially being a person that's a professional disruptor. So what are those like agitators there to do? They're there to show everybody this is how it's done. They light a few buildings on fire, they break the windows, and then other people go like, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess this is okay. This is the unfortunate part of human nature, guys. It's just the reality. A lot of people just follow the leader that way. Unfortunately, they don't go the positive, the love path, because oftentimes it's just not available. And that's not really where people typically want to go. It's not the most appealing pathway all the time when these things happen. They're angry. They're upset. They don't want to dance in the streets. That's not what they're wanting to do at that moment. I understand. Now, I understand, but I'm also explaining to you, like today, behind the scenes here, I was kind of deconstructing one of the more popular narratives, trying to explain to people, like, do you understand just like how misunderstood some of these stories that are going on in the press are right now? And, they're designed in such a clever way, guys, to get everybody on if you pick a side on all of these stories, you're already missing the point. The point is for you to choose a side. The point is for you to empathize with one character or the other, and then that polarizes someone against listening to you. And they learn how to do this in a way that is so calculated and algorithmic in nature. It is just beyond measure. It is so like traceable and trackable at this point. Like the methods, the ways they go about it. I mean, it is bizarre. So I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, hurting, that's a good point there. So sorry, I've been reading the comments there. So welcome and search, Sean. Hi there, Lisa. I'm going to scroll up there, Wordsmith. Okay, everybody. Sometimes when I'm on a roll, I'll just keep blah, 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 and I forget to say hello to everybody. So hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. So anyways, I wanted to just do more of a deep dive on this topic and maybe show you some of my old material that I did about 4 years ago that's all about this. It talks about the actual military industrial scale like form of psychological manipulation to get and what they did. Like, for example, my report covers like what the declassified study discusses about like Phoenix Project, things that were going on in Vietnam, about how they subdued the population there and got them to, I guess you could say, acquiesce, to what was going on there to a degree for a limited amount of time. It was really trippy reading through this documentation written in the early 70s to see what the thought processes were. I have to say, though, in the vast majority of the military documentation that I found, I tend to see that they're healthy-minded people. They write reports that are just more generally like, I am concerned that said technologies exist. What is being done by another entity or potentially within the United States to use these things? It's hardly ever like that smoking gun document where it's like let's do this to the people. I almost never find things like that. And I'm not saying that just to be, ass kissing or something like that. It's mostly because I'm letting you guys understand that I found the declassified documentation to mostly be enlightening and educational and not manipulative. Mostly, though, I find that's true when it's written by the United States Army themselves or the Defense Intelligence Agency themselves. Those tend to be very thorough reports that just sort of accumulate all the different information into one report and observe it like, I think this has merit. I think this is scary. I think this needs to be further examined, blah, 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 right? And then, then you'll look into the independent labs that researched a lot of the same topics. For example, obviously, I was interested, those familiar, I do a lot of material on Science Applications International Corporation, Leidos, and more recently, Dynetics. These are 3 companies that are all effectively part of the same large beast of defense, military, industrial control over our infrastructure in ways that most people are completely blind to. There's these companies that exist out there, folks, that have more management over our perceptions and information than you realize. And if you really don't know how much they control and why it's important, it's like everything that's going on in the news cycle today, folks, I can really trace back to their flow of information control and the things that these labs have influence over. I'm not sure how else to tell you. They're heavily embedded at the Department of Energy doing infrastructure related projects. And then when you discover that the DOE has quite a bit of access to national security administration functions, it gets pretty spooky. Yeah. Yeah. So it's again, pretty serious. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about like, why are they making some of these things up? The thing I'm learning about the last, I would say, here's the thing, folks. Have you noticed, I would say, sigils being used more? You're going to find that the use of sigils in top 40 music and other forms, it doesn't really matter, But in band names or things of that nature, regardless of the intention of the bands, the influence of the industry is around them to get them to do these things. I don't think that sigils are bad in themselves. I think people that use them do it for various reasons, bad, good, whatever. What is a sigil? It's a little bit like you combine here's one way to do a sigil, for example. Like, you would think about something that you want to manifest, like a whole bunch of words, and you would write them, in different places on a piece of paper, removing the vowels. Removing the vowels is a big part of it. And then you would like combine all of the different letters that are similar into one letter. And then you would combine those into one large bridge of all of the combined letters together into one like looking weird symbol looking thing that has all the letters contained in it, absent of the vowels. And it could be like an entire paragraph, but you're just merging all of it into this big symbol. That would be one example of a sigil. Not the only way to do it, but that's one way to do it. Okay. And you're going to find this type of, it's a little bit like, if you think about it, what I just described to you, it's archaeometry. Well, let me not use that term because that's more vague. It's a little bit like a witch's brew of words and symbols for the collective consciousness that, when placed within the media cycle, gets a large group within the population focused and concentrated on the words contained within the characters of the falsified narrative. What this winds up doing is all of us who discuss the story, talk about it, focus on it, concentrate on it, etc., we begin to give vibratory frequency energy, in a literal sense, to the people that have created said, quote, sigils, which are effectively informational gumbo. How else do I say it? They're just throwing in everything that they're trying to deceive. So let me give you an example. If I told you a whole bunch of things about who's running human trafficking in Portland, or I at least hinted at it, they may create a news story that places all of those people's names like a sigil into a shooting between a police officer and a fake victim that gets both the population angry, that gets people that are like, more inclined to, quote, back the blue. They will be backing a person that's equally corrupt to whoever, or guys, here's how they might even do it. The person in the street might have actually been a real person, and it might have been the fake cop that shot the real person, or it could have been the real cop that shot the fake person. Guys, these things work in very bizarre ways sometimes. I mean, if you understand occultism and how these people really operate. But I know so much about the Portland news cycle and things that are relative to that local area to know that this last one was absolutely occult 101, mixing and integrating. But I'll never say it 100%. I'm always, look, guys, I always leave open that whatever. But the more I reviewed that one, I'm going, no, I'm sorry. I just know the people that control these narratives way too well to know it's a little bit like the Joker, you know what I'm saying, or the Riddler. The Riddler always has to leave his little freaking calling card. These people are like that, you guys, and they do poke at me. That's the best thing I can tell you, because I've been researching them heavily for 5 years. And what I'm appealing to people on is that if you're trying to defeat this problem, I can assure you I'm an extremely effective person at doing that. I really do need to, though, have some more effective partners right now, folks. I really do. It's reached kind of mission critical here in the area that I'm in. And so I'm going to make some appeals to folks that, I do need a little bit of a boost at the moment. And I want to do one of two things, to be honest with you. I would like to either do something with a group that would sort of energetically change, potentially to balance out things relative to the area that I'm in, or I just need to get extracted from this area with a little bit of assistance, because guys, they whittled me down to having no car now. My rental situation's bad, and I have to take care of it tomorrow. And there's something that's just, it's just getting ugly, guys, with everything. And they're going to have me rewrite this contract and ask me to put all this money down, and it's going to put me in another bad situation. So I need to preemptively attack this while it's before it gets really, really bad. So I'm going to make appeals to folks. If you would like to contribute to the channel, I would really appreciate if this would be the time that you select, because it is getting very, very challenging for me to either make this a better situation here, which I would love to do if I can. That it would help to have partners, though. Honestly, I have ideas on how to make that work that are pretty fun, actually, but I can't fund them independently. But yeah, I think if somebody wants to have a way to sort of kind of challenge some of these alt media narratives without being too whatever, I have an idea on how to do it that would be pretty clever and may actually just promote truth. And it doesn't have to be confrontational. This is something that I think would just sort of like, I don't know. I just have ideas. That's all I can tell you. I don't want to say too much about them publicly, though, because I prefer that these be private discussions. But yeah, you know. But yeah, anyways, guys. But yes, they do. You're right, Lisa. They left their signature. Yeah. They basically the what do you want to call it? The people that do this, guys, it's not just a calling card for their ego. I'm helping people understand that that symbol. I don't know if you saw my my title card for this particular thing. I can put it up here because that would actually help. What really forms? I use this thing called circle grids to tell everybody about this because it's really just the basic concept of flower of life. How do you structure reality with the spheres? Okay, and I'm going to put this up here. All right. So the way we structure reality has a lot to do with like the hemisphereing of our brain relative to our pineal glands, and then what goes on inside our brain with our pineal gland to the electromagnetics response. It's a piezo responsive crystal structure. Crystals kind of glow with color. And so what I'm explaining to folks is that within your brain, the reason why these circular grids are so important to understand is that you have these very similar dimensional reactions inside the back that's forming color spectrum that your brain responds to. Again, there's different theories on this, and I'm not a brain scientist or a brain doctor, so I'm not going to tell you that I know everything about it, except that I get a lot of these things from intuition. I get a lot of it from studying plasma fields and some of this military documentation, which would suggest that the way we structure reality has a lot more to do with what you're seeing right here on these charts than it does with what we've been told. That a lot of everything that we're dealing with really is just this constant response of signals going back, forth, transmit, receive, pinging back and forth, pineal gland to pineal gland, to structure what we perceive as a 3D reality. And I'm not saying this to sound like Neo in the Matrix or like, Morpheus or something like that. I'm not really going there in the classic sense, except that, yeah, I mean, in a way, I don't like the way the movie turns it, because they try to make it seem as if you're just behind all of this perception of reality, an energy source. And if that narrative is promoted, then people will manifest it. If you put that idea out to the collective consciousness the way that the Matrix did, as often as it did, then you may create a circumstance where people begin to just sort of become like sources of energy for whatever, very bad news, not really a good thing. Okay. And I think that that's something like that's going on with the psychotronic generators in America, which is to say these are devices that sort of increase the electrical flow in the human body, and it has the ability to target specific blood groups and specific DNA strands. This is actually something I know to be true because I actually have some of the technology available to me that can do good things with it. So I know there's bad things that can be done with it too. Some examples of this, if I was able to get it out more readily, I would, but it's already packed up. But there's things like Rife that are more sophisticated forms of DNA signal entrainment, wherein you can place a sample of your DNA inside between two magnets and then vibrate the DNA sample at these select frequencies, which sends healing frequencies of the same vibratory, whatever resonant energy. Your body picks up on it from the DNA sample. And this is supposed to be something that works across whatever. which is to say that I could have something like a sample of somebody's DNA, place it in between these two magnets, and be 1,000 miles away and still be able to provide some degree of frequency healing to them. It sounds strange, but once I studied like how the brain and plasma fields kind of link, and that the ELF passes around the world a couple times sometimes, like I'm thinking to myself, no, this all totally makes sense. There's a constant plasma emission. We're always in this constant biosphere, a biofield. And I'm just like, whoa, this totally makes sense. So, all right. Let's see here. Signature. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm trying to find a better way to talk about the recent story without being too inflammatory with what's already going on, guys. Because like my situation's bad enough where I got to do. I need to be a little bit safer before I start talking about some other topics, guys. But I'm not trying to get too controversial or anything else like that. It's just that I don't want to get too deep into some of them at the moment. Is all. I have faith in people that keep an eye out on me, but I just like lately they've been whittling me down a little bit too close to zero for me to be comfortable with the way things are going. And it just I'm pretty confident and I have a lot of faith in people, but at the same time it's I don't know. It's not something I'm comfortable with, and I haven't always. This has never happened to me before, to be honest with you guys. A situation like what's going on right now, but I'm still just trying to like meditate and keep a positive focus and things like that, and not get too rattled. So, but yeah, it's really crunch time. I got to be honest with you guys. No pressure on anyone or anything like that, but it's I think that we can make a lot of progress right now. I have amazing capabilities of doing healing technologies, wellness methods, and things like that. I know what I have capable inside me to do, let alone the things that I know to do with technology. And I really feel like what's going on right now is just some sort of concerted effort to make sure I can never bring any of those ideas to fruition. It's just bizarre the way it's all like landing simultaneously, especially today. But again, it was so weird. I did such heavy meditation and concentration exercises earlier this morning that by the time all the crap arrived, like it's so bizarre, guys. The people that communicate to me using this sort of technology or whatever it is, the intuitive communication, always give me heads up about things to alert me. And I would think that was deception if it wasn't for the fact that it always prepares me physically and mentally to better deal with it. And I have a way better outlook when these things happen. Like I don't get that sense of dread. And if it does, it lasts all of like about like a split second. I barely even get that adrenaline rush that you get from like worrying about something anymore. And I'm in a Nev situation, guys. But again, it's like, there's something that I've learned about the way that this is exactly the same way it works within psychoenergetic events across the population, guys. That's the whole point of it. They get something going inside you because they're trying to trigger a whole series of much worse things in you by getting you psychoenergetically like upset. They don't want you, you see where I'm going with this? They want you like super pissed. And so I just make appeals to folks to like, don't get stuck in that place. Don't whatever. All right. Trying to think of the next place to take this here. I had on my list here. I was going to talk about love bombing, and I'm going to still. All right. What I'm saying, guys, is that there's love bombing. All right, and in the sense of like when you actually. I don't know if you've ever heard this term. I can actually show you a definition of it, but love bombing within structural psychology is a way of sort of like approaching people with aggressive, what do you want to call it? You just surround them and pretend to be their friend effectively. It's, honeypots, it's confidence games, it's all of it. and just being like total reinforcement of the individual, constant, like you're amazing, you're brilliant, you're great. But a lot of the reason why these people perform love bombing, especially related to the love cult that I've been talking about, they don't really do it for people's benefits, and they're not genuinely nice people. That particular group will do it because they intend to rug sweep you. It's something that they're very methodic at, guys. I don't like to get into detail about it because I'm just telling you, I've had multiple iterations of it here on YouTube and in my personal life where they just all do it at the same time. Today, this has been one of them, guys, the last month, where a lot of the people that I know were loved cult family members that were just kind of fronting here in the chat, I didn't let in on it, guys. I just kind of let them do their thing and be really obvious about it. Not let them, but I knew I got to the point, guys, where if I was going to like block every single one of these cult members or throw them all out, they're relying on that. And then they're going to bring somebody in that's going to pretend to be like offended. And then they use that. I mean, guys, you don't even know like how crafty this group is about manipulating people's perceptions. They know how to prime the pump to get everybody to think negatively or positively about a good or a bad person, but they really like to switch your perspectives. They like to make you think, extremely good things about a horrible person, and then think extremely negative things about a very pure-minded or very pure-intentioned, at least, if not pure-minded, at least pure-intentioned, guys. Purity. I think purity of intention, though, does involve purity of mind to some degree. I guess it just depends on your definition. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a pure mind, but I definitely have good and pure intentions, and I don't want to see people lied to and hoodwinked. I really want to see us make decisions amongst one another based on truth, even if we have differences, when we all do. I want us to balance our differences against one another. And in our country right now, it really is false narrative versus false narrative. Can you steer the mass population towards your perspective using a whole series of falsified data sets that get them moving in the direction of your position? And good and bad people are doing this, but it's all deception. And I think that when you practice deception at this level, you're really, look, I think if you're good intended, your karma is going to be more or less okay, but you're going to still experience something on the karma cycle that's going to be a very similar nature, that's going to be unpleasant to you, is all I'm going to say. I mean, you have to just be prepared for that. And it's simply because what you're kind of doing is gaslighting everyone's perception about what's real and fake. And this has really become more and more bothersome to me as I've seen everybody kind of move from one narrative to the other in this hopes that their newest character is going to get them there. And I'm asking you guys, like, I've lost lots of audience members because they love I don't want to even say their characters' names, guys. I'll just say that there's some pretty well-known ones out there that everybody thinks are huge celebrity whistleblowers, that because they don't have my background or know what I know about the labs that create these characters, they really don't know about those layer 2, 3, 4, 5 deceptions where, yeah, about the one where they just like trick you, obviously. Do you know about the ones where they pretend to be the person that pretends to be the person that pretends to be the person? Do you know about the one where both guilty parties pretend to be the victims of a crime that they perpetuate on each other when they're actually just friends in the same criminal syndicate? Then they get the entire population arguing over which one is right when they're both just partners. And this is a big lucha libre to get you arguing over your favorite character, divide our population, and then the people involved with drug trafficking, child trafficking, and everything else, they just keep doing what they're doing out in the open. And the news story is, in fact, used to communicate details of their, quote, deals. And we just keep letting them do it, guys. It's just become so freaking beyond obvious now. People must know there's something wrong with the news, So how do we change this, guys? Because I think we have to do something that's, look, you can't really, if you really think that you're going to win, and I'm saying this to people in the military, intelligence, or the population, I don't really care where you're from. I'm asking you, do you think that you can beat these people by just lying better than them? Because you're never going to do better at lying than them. Okay, that's all I can tell you. So what I would suggest to people is to learn the art of peace through truth telling, the art of peace through really just being open and honest and forthright about everything as much as possible, yeah, we have to, guys, you know, look, sometimes I think you have permission just to say, like, I just don't want to talk to you about that. To me, I feel like, look, there's enough things where if you really want to like learn whatever you feel like, whatever, but you know, I think I'm just going to keep that to myself because I just, you know, the world already has enough of me. I think it's okay for people to say that, you know, to a degree. Now, if you're publicly accountable or in some position or whatever, or if you're Hunter Biden who did what he did, no, you can't really say that, guys. There's obviously things that you have to be a little bit more whatever, right? But you know, although I'm not entirely sure I believe that whole narrative, I think a lot of it is whatever. But you know, but here's the thing, guys. Um, Mass resonance manipulation is being used to such a degree right now within the news cycle that taps into a part of the human brain that kickstarts you into getting their narrative out there in ways where if you don't ignore it, you're just really going to feed into it. I don't even like discussing this story in Portland because I'm feeding it slightly by discussing it. So how do I get to the point, folks, where I can stop discussing it? You know, I don't want to. And it's one of the reasons why I prefer discussing things about the biofield, because in my mind, folks, the biofield is everything. The biofield is where we should be focusing our attention because the biofield going forward is going to bring more things into resonance than other methods. See, typically they've just been learning to change things here within the physical reality at this level instead of thinking more meditative and more astral and more whatever. I'm explaining to people that there is a science-based reason why you want to give greater considerations to thinking more in terms of what can you manifest through focused concentration and meditation because of what it is as a scientific process. Why is prayer and meditation so effective at calming down an individual under challenging circumstances? Why is it practiced in churches? Why do people hold hands inside the church and link their energies together and then say the common set of words and phraseologies while standing and sitting and kneeling at the same time? Why do they do it in energy locations inside buildings where there's a specific type of echo and vibratory frequency that's generated through the steeples when these people all worship inside this place and say the same thing at the same time on an energy location that re-radiates their voices outward, the sounds of their voice? And it also, I would argue, because what this is doing is it's bringing something. I want you to think about this. These are metaphysical building blocks of bringing a belief system into physical reality. That's why churches and mosques and synagogues and everything else, temples exist. They actually bring the metaphysical into physical resonance by using human frequency in the collective hive mind, getting them all to synchronize and agree upon one idea at the same time. Then through the architecture of the buildings they worship in, broadcast outward, which radiates the signal. And now you have a collection of bioplasma contained within this building that is all mixed together, just like this, okay? Just like these circular grids. This is your belief systems manifesting when you're inside a church or a synagogue or a temple or any, you know, sorry if I'm missing your mosque, whatever your preferred, you know, nomenclature is for a center of worship. Maybe I should just say center of worship. But you know, the point is that all of these, when they're, you know, of the more traditional architecture, are designed to re-radiate the plasma signatures of people relative to the energy location. They really are. And this needs to be understood in greater detail because then we can all start, those of us who really want to start doing something meaningful, we can begin having a greater discussion about what it takes to do what we want to do. Excuse me. I said this earlier to some people, you know, and I'll say, I want everybody to know this. You know, why do we keep waiting for all of these characters out there in the alt media to tell us that we're valid, to tell us that we're okay, that we're legit, that we're one of the real ones? Like, why are we waiting for them? Because I can promise you guys, if you meet me, I can actually show you everything about me documentation wise, top down. None of it's been made up. None of it's been fictionalized. It's something that I have a traceable history where we could actually go out, produce a whole documentary of, and just following me. And I can show you, I lived here, I went there. There's my school. Here's why we went to this location. Here's why we went to that location. I think it would be a fascinating documentary, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be all about the actual things. It could be a totally fictionalized or part fiction thing. Not saying that my life was that interesting, okay, but certainly the connections that have gone on and everything else like that. I got to be honest with you guys. Yeah, some of my life has been interesting enough to be a television series. Honestly, I've talked about that with some of the people I was experiencing it with sometimes. Like, it really kind of feels like this is almost something that could be a show, because it was just so, it was tense at times, or we were dealing with things that were pretty challenging. It could have been a reality show, at least. That would have been effective, but I don't know. Because we had to do emergency response, and we had, things that went down and people that couldn't make calls. And it was, dangerous situations that we had to get into in the middle of the night and going different places. So a lot of those things did happen in my life and in my career, relative to, like, processing calls for emergency communications and things like that. You just have to have, there's just all kinds of stories, guys, that you can just get from even, I didn't have as many exciting ones that involved the nature things, but yeah, we had guys that would get stuck on mountains, have to sleep inside cell towers at night, take choppers to the top of cell towers to restore them, dig snow out and everything like that, take snowmobiles up to them to dig the snow out. A lot of these guys, ladies and gentlemen, that were involved with those restorations of those towers and everything like that, it was pretty harrowing work. It was pretty aggressive, and very interesting characters get into it too. I mean, I hardly had any boring coworkers, I can tell you that. Whether we got along or didn't, they almost never were boring. Very colorful series of characters. Anyways, I think it would make compelling entertainment if we turned it into some degree of, like, semi-fiction or close to the reality, but concealed enough to communicate what needs to be communicated. And I'm really eager to get something like that going, because I really feel like it's something that we could actually use it to be both entertaining and enlightening, but also reveal details about just how effed the situation is within the communications grid. That way it could be something that kind of spoon feeds it to people that aren't that familiar with what's going on. Because, guys, I've done about 3 news stories here that tells people exactly what's going on with all of our routes being compromised. And it takes only like 20 some minutes to get through all 3 articles, if that, maybe total 20 some minutes. In fact, I might play them tonight just to show you guys. I think I should. And it'll just help you understand exactly what the situation is. Like, I'll give you a quick overview, guys. You have to know that when it comes to our information in America, that there's routes that it travels on. There's gatekeepers for those routes, and there's gatekeepers within the media organizations. And then the way the media organizations transfer data relative to news stories and who they hire and where they're contracted and how they get those jobs, it's all very relevant. And I've just learned that in America, it really does lead back to a central lab. I mean, there's like a couple companies that really can just dominate the informational environment and every pathway in and out. To me, that seems a little bit scary, knowing that, well, number one of the companies that's managed these information routes had over a dozen charges of bribery, blackmail, extortion, and they manage telecommunication routes globally. To me, that's very troublesome. And full disclosure, guys, I've worked side by side with contractors from that company. I know things. I'm not your average person. I can show you certifications and jobs that I worked on that would demonstrate that I was in fact working next to these types of people or ones from these companies, to know what the hell I'm talking about. I've done a lot of high profile, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've done a couple high profile contracts outside of my regular career. One was a project in the San Francisco Bay Area that was swapping out a huge number of cell towers from one manufacturer to another, which is a very daunting project. I can assure you, very high stress, especially in an area like San Francisco where you cannot F up. You can't. These are not areas where you can leave anything offline, because too many people are on those phones. And, making mistakes is really not an option. And this involved, like, transferring databases from tower to tower, and it's very, very challenging trying to go from one manufacturer to another. It's literally, can you imagine trying to seamlessly switch your machine from being on Windows to being on a Mac OS? Can you imagine like switching like all of your, say you're in a company that had like 500 computers, and you were trying to merge them all from Windows to Mac OS. That's kind of what we were doing with cell towers, except it was way, way, way more complicated. So I was on a project like that, and then I was on another one that that did in-building systems, and it was called In-Building System Performance. And so this is literally where I wore the backpacks and did all the sophisticated, plots of the signals and how they laid out in all these different buildings. And this included, hospitals, underground power facilities, military facilities in some cases. I've been in parts of underground Portland, just so you guys know. I know that it has sub-basement levels way, way, way below where all those buildings are. I've had to get systems installed that brought GPS cable hundreds of feet down underground and then had the antenna mounted up above at street level just simply to get the signal down there. I mean, that's the kind of job that I was doing, was creative projects that would bring signals into challenging situations where people could normally not get them. That's why it was called In-Building System Performance. Anyways, I'm not sure why I was explaining all that. Oh yeah, sorry, I was just talking about my work experience, but relative to like what would make a good show. But just like the things you learn from just a job like that, guys, about what's really going on. I mean, you just see things, you witness things, people talk to you, they share information with you. You don't know why they're telling you things like they tell you, but they are. And I just learned a lot. I had people just make some very strange confessionals to me about things that were going down where they were, and I didn't know where to take the information. I'm like, why is this person telling me this? Why would they tell me this? Guys, like one case, I'm just going to be straight up with you to tell you what kind of information I have and why I don't understand why the FBI doesn't approach me. In one case, I did a job at a building where it was at a power company where the guy effectively admitted to me that they were hacking their way into separating the facility where energy is managed relative to where energy is traded, like as a commodity market. So technically, you're never supposed to have in the same building traders within the industry, which is to say that there's people that basically trade energy and energy commodities relative to power reserves and everything else like that. So wind power and solar power and whatever, coal power, all of it, it's a commodity industry that's traded, and reserves of it are traded in a market economy. And so one of the ways of preserving integrity in these processes is that you're not ever supposed to have trading of this commodity, which is energy, in the same place where energy is managed and produced or whatever, or what directed. And so this one place that I went, and I'm not going to say where it is on camera here, I'm just going to tell you the kind of information that I wish the FBI would just be like, why are you ignoring this if I'm saying that I know these things? How can you say that you can keep just acting like I'm not worth saving or preserving when things are this obviously corrupt? Unless you just think I'm making this shit up. If you want to keep saying that, that's okay. But this actually happened. And anybody with more integrity who wants me to give them the specifics about where it was, I'll tell them. But this was in Washington State. It's energy related. It was in Washington State. This person revealed to me that the same location where the power company was managing the energy, that they just basically put a building next to it that technically had a different address, but was sort of connected by putting a roof between the two buildings, and then a door that had a glass window in it, so that effectively a person can just look through the glass door. They can see, or the glass window in one door, see across the hallway to where the energy is being traded. But technically they have two different addresses that are off by a couple digits. But if you ever walked in the building, you would know they're the same freaking building. They just sandwiched them together and put a roof over the top. But technically they're two different buildings. And the person that was behind all of it basically kind of just said it to me, what they were doing in there. That's what it was for doing. And then it said, well, I don't worry about you because you sign NDAs. So I'm supposed to not talk about that? That's a crime. Am I supposed to be okay with that? And then once I say to people like I know these things, why don't these groups like do something more meaningful to like go like, yeah, dude, come on over. Yeah, I'll help you out. Like they don't do it. And so this is the situation we're in, ladies and gentlemen. Like we just have to be smarter. I was a person that was out there saying like, hey, you know, you got to at least try. Well, I learned, guys, when you try, they just like, I don't understand why. It must be that bad. So yeah, you know something, Lisa? I wonder if that's what it was. I think that maybe it was like a benevolent person that was trying to maybe just give me a confessional. I don't know. You know, I think that was part of it because I would have, gosh, you know something? I think that's what it is the more I think about it, Lisa. I've had so many people walk up to me and confess the strangest things. And I think that might be why the FBI just doesn't want to take me in and talk to me, is because they know I'll just give them so many things they're going to have to be looking into. They have to, guys. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But that's just one case. That's one case. Now, did that person lie to me and just say it to where I'd believe it? I don't know, but they did say that to me. But doesn't that show you like I mean, that affects all of our power bills, guys. You know, Lisa, maybe I just like I have that magnetic quality. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe these people just start to just say things to me because they can't help themselves. I wasn't using voodoo on the guy, though, I promise you. He just starts telling me. And again, I still don't know what to do at this point. I really don't. I'm not sure. Like I got too many stories like this, things like that. You know, like a long time ago, I used to live in Oklahoma for about a year and a half, and I would stay at an Embassy Suites pretty regularly. And I always had these weird, like very interesting experiences there, you know, in this hotel. It's in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. Very nice Embassy Suites. It's an older one, but it was just really, I mean, we always like really liked staying there. And I would sometimes have to be there for like a week at a time for training or to help out in that market because I was based in Oklahoma City. And this one time I was in there and I was, you know, closing the bar like I was inclined to back in 2004. I was pretty heavy drinker. And I was hanging out down there, and there's this guy that was closing it with me, you know, and he was just by himself, and you know, it just got to that thing where like, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And it's like he tells me he's a pilot and that he flew. Guys, I promise you, this is real. He told me he flew planes for the Bin Laden family. Now, this guy's telling me this in like 2004, late 2004, maybe early 2005 timeframe is about when all this was happening. And not too long after 9/11. So this is only like a few years after that. So I'm kind of going like, how did this happen? How did I wind up at this bar with only one other person drinking in it here in this, you know, on a weeknight in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where this guy just starts telling me like he's just like concerned and confessional, and he doesn't even know why he's telling me these things. Or it's weird the way it happened. But yeah, he's just telling me like, yeah, well, you know, he just said that they're not, he told me that the rest of the Bin Laden family are like oil family. They're totally, you know, they're completely allowed access in and out of the US. They're completely different than Osama. I think a lot of people know that. Well, let me put it this way. Is that true or not true? I don't know. But the point is that they weren't on some terrorist watch list. They were able to, you know, fly back and forth. And I guess when they were more freely flying prior to 9/11, he was one of the pilots that actually took them on, you know, small flights back and forth. He didn't have any groundbreaking information relative to that. It was just a strange thing for somebody to kind of like tell me about and confess to me a little bit and just let me know. But it was really weird the way these things would sometimes happen to me, the way people felt a little bit like, yeah, like it was a somewhat confessional, or they had something kind of that was heavy on their heart. And they for some strange reason, they knew that if they told me, I think I'm catching on to something. It's almost like they know that if they tell me that eventually, through some iteration of something, it's going to find its way to the right group, and that it's better than not trying at all. Because I've just had in mind, if somebody brings something like that to me, that's just how I am. I don't just kind of go like, oh, okay, well, you can figure that out. I don't know. I take on too many things, guys. It's always been my problem. And then, then I'm under-resourced for me. So I understand that I don't want anybody else to under-resource themselves for me either, guys. I really don't. I'm just, with what I got going on right now, I would like people to know that I'm a very, very good partner to have if you really would like to make meaningful progress and change things, or just be in a better state of wellness, or both, because I have the ability to do it. And right now I'm a little bit concerned about what I'm going to be doing with my gear, because if I lose a car or I lose the ability to get around, I don't know what I'm going to do with my gear. I don't have a reliable place to put it. I'll have to go put it in storage or something like that. But how do I retrieve it after that? What if I have to go someplace? I don't know what I'm going to do if I lose this car tomorrow. So anybody that might be able to help me out, I'd really appreciate it, because I'm kind of concerned. They were basically telling me that if I don't have it all resolved and everything like that and write up a new contract tomorrow, that they're going to just take it. So I don't know why they made that ultimatum to me so suddenly. It was kind of bizarre. But yeah, I got to take care of it. So that's going to put me in a really bad position, folks. So those of you who know that I can help you, or want me to use my services or something like that, it's just the time to do it, folks. Just making an appeal for that. Yeah, not sure what the next phase is, but I have a lot of confidence in people. I have a positive outlook. I feel like, especially, I don't know what's happened, guys, energetically in the area that I'm in, but I really felt like whatever went on this morning, I did a lot to transmute the energy and balance the energy relative to the location that I'm in. And even though things aren't going very well right now, I got to be honest with you, I feel very confident that I did something meaningful to change things in a good way. It's the best way I can put it. And, I just don't, it's never been my favorite place to be, guys. I'm not a big fan of it. But there's something that I think that could be done here that would be pretty entertaining if somebody's interested in talking to me about it. So anyways, let's talk here. Oh, wait, not that. All right. I'm thinking about, oops, I lost my, all right. Okay, what I need to do then is put on something involving structural psychology here really briefly. So I'm going to play some video, and this, you know what I want to do? Oh, sorry, Lisa. Yeah, it's actually happened right before I got on this feed, but it's been kind of culminating into whatever. But yeah, it's just involving my rental. I'm going to lose probably my rental car because I have things going on monetarily where I don't know that I can get it going again and support staying in a hotel. And I've already lost the car that I had. So it's just getting to be kind of mission critical right now. I got to find something I got to do. So I was just making an appeal to folks that, if they can, if they want to have a more contract me or consult with me, this is just the best time to do it, because I do like to earn, whatever. But at the same time, I'm also, looking for those who are, capable of doing, doing a little bit of a contribution. It would definitely help out right now. But really what I'm trying to do, guys, is I don't want to keep putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. I really want to sort of get out of this situation entirely and be in a different spot altogether. And it's almost like there's these really bizarre things that are doing it to inconvenience or make it to where I'm just stuck and anchored here. And I'm really just trying to just either go or find a way to make things work better here. But I haven't been able to do that independently. I need partners. So I really do. It's not something I can do alone at this point, is what I've realized. And that I need to find my tribe. I need to be working with them. And we've got to be doing something meaningful, because it's just, I've made so much progress, and a lot of us have made progress together, doing things that I feel like these rug sweeps that are going on just to sort of like, kind of like, I don't know. It's just like, it's trying to dispirit me. It's not working to dispirit me, but it's definitely creating stresses that I wish weren't there. And I'd be able to focus and concentrate on things in a more meaningful way if I could just remove some of these stressors that are going on right now. So that's all. Like, so I'm just needing to reach out to some folks in a more meaningful way to say, like, is there something we can do to maybe help out and relieve some of these stressors that are going on out here? It doesn't always have to equate to a direct contribution to the channel or whatever, but I'm also looking like, is there people who have work or consulting gigs, or is there people who or who are looking to form a more long-term partnership relative to some of the energetics concepts that I've discussed? It's just that I'm getting to the point now where I would really just like to just sort of like get past where I'm doing the whole contribution cycle thing and just like sort of solidify something now with a group where we can like form all of it together cohesively. I want it to be more focused on bringing things into physical reality by learning all the techniques to balance energy in locations, because that's really the challenge right now. And I'm telling you, I've mastered that part. I really know I have. And that's why I know that, right? Like, you see how I'm smiling, guys, but I'm telling you, it's a really F situation. So I feel like if I don't say it a little bit more importantly, then people won't take it seriously. It's like, he's smiling. How could it be that bad? It's bad, guys, but this is how you know. it's it's because if I didn't do it this way, if I didn't smile as it's happening, if I didn't find a way to balance out my energy or to be happy despite the circumstance, it would get worse, and conditions around me get worse. It really is like a chain reaction effect with our energy. Those of us who have this gift, or who have the, whatever you want to call it, blessing or curse, that the chain reaction of psychoenergetic events is significant. I know this because of the people that have practiced psychoenergetic science within, that have been close to me historically. Yeah, if you knew their methods the way that I do, yeah, these things are always very coordinated. And I've been trying to give people a little bit of insights into how that works without getting too much into the sort of victim cycle thing. But yeah, there's a lot going on there that I could talk about to explain it better. Anyways, I didn't mean to go excessively into it, but yeah, that's the situation, folks. And I think what I'm going to do then is, and this will help you understand a little bit of my challenges when I explain to you that, like, getting out of the information environment where this same group of people, like the love cult, for example, are constantly allowed into my environment, but others are restricted away from it. So some people, like, I've met some real people. I know they're real. They're very sincere. They're very nice people. They're very helpful. And, you know, they're not the cult. And so I know that not everybody that's in YouTube is that, but I'm saying to you that a lot of those people that I have met are experiencing the same thing as me. They're performing structural psychology to all of us. They know what we are, and they're trying to get us to think fake things because they want us to repeat it to everybody else. And if we believe it, on top of saying it out loud, it has enormous vibratory frequency, energetic, everything we're talking about, how they bring things from the metaphysical into physical reality. We are opting in. We are letting them do it, and we're letting them use us. And I tried to make this appeal yesterday to or not yesterday, but today, to a friend of mine. I said, no, we are the table they need to sit at. That's what those of us who have this must start to understand. Don't get an ego about it, but know your value, know what you have inside you, and don't let people manipulate you. You must know your value. You must have a better sense of self-respect. Or the people that are doing this will constantly just be smirking at you while there's like, well, what you're saying, like, they like to send their calling card. They like to they put out their little confessional right there in front of everybody, always. And there's a greater reason for that. I mean, that's literally, the anchor is dropped. Boom, it goes right into your subconscious. And I'm really just trying to get the influence of those groups out of my life as much as possible, or just to have a better support base so that when they surround me with like 3 or 4 of their fake people, I at least have a couple real people around me to where I can kind of go like, thank God I have at least 1 or 2 real people around me, because I need that, guys. I need to have a few. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm being real with you here. I lost my family. I don't have a family anymore. I want you, I'm not saying that to get your, it's just real for me. I don't have a place to go back to. This information that I've been trying to get people's awareness surrounding has cost me that. And if I don't have a family that I can go to on some level to build a tribe with, I fear I'll fail. I need a family. And I don't know what to do. I have to start somewhere. And I don't know where that is. I don't feel like this is the place. But I don't know where to go. So I'm very confident, guys. I don't want you to think otherwise, but I won't lie to you. I'm scared right now. To be real. But I'm meditating and I'm figuring it out. Sorry, but it's real for me. So I'm really trying to keep my chin up. You know, guys, it's less the financial part now and it's more the family thing, to be honest with you. That's the worst part about breaking mind control. Is that you realize that it's a lonely place. And you got layers that you got to get past to establish trust again. So guys, if I fail in that regard, it's because there's people that are gaslighting my ability to trust aggressively while I'm dealing with this. So please forgive me if I don't always evaluate things properly. It's the best thing I'm going to tell you. It's just I need you to understand that it's because of this exact thing that's going on right now. These cults know what they're doing, man. They know exactly how to go for the jugular. They take your family. They surround you with a new family that is designed to rug sweep you and make you believe that there's nobody you can trust. And I refuse to believe that. I know there's trustworthy people. I know there's beautiful people that help and are concerned, and they're not going to let me fail. And I'm just saying, like, if you've been waiting on the sidelines, if you're one of those people that say that you can when you will, or, you know, I just want to know, guys, you know, yeah, yeah. You know what I'm really looking for is I just want something that'll just like just learn what it is in all reality without it being spin. I mean, you know, I'm not trying to spin anything. If I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about even the most damning piece of my information, I will absolutely tell people I made a mistake. Let me fix it. I've always been that way. And what happened with this information that I'm, you know, I'll show you a little bit of it. I'm not going to go dark, guys. I just want you to see like where the information flow is. Um, um, I just want you to see how the information flows, though, within America, to where you understand that the ones that kind of created these information technology, information system pathways for both our phone numbers, excuse me. I don't mean to be gross, guys. I forgot to bring tissues in here. I did not expect to get emotional. I've really been trying just to project more confidence, guys. I did not want to do that on camera, and I'm sorry, but I can't pretend that it doesn't bother me that I don't have my family anymore. So I think I got to take a quick break on maybe talking because I got to control this. So let me get into the part about why the information pathways are so restricted at the moment. And I will check into your inquiries there. Thank you, DW. I'll look into that. I didn't see anything go through, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I will look into that. So guys, I'm gonna get something on the screen right now. What these are is from my playlist called Justin Gabriel Cruz. That's my full name if you don't know. Information sharing for concerned parties. And so to me, the first 3 articles, right, and these aren't very long, guys. These are all pretty short. But if you pay close attention to these articles, they're going to give you this is a basics, a 101. Most of it's pretty easy to understand. If I can answer questions to make it more understandable, please tell me. I'm not going to ridicule you if you answer or ask a question or something like that, especially because it's technical. And I want people to understand it because it's important to know what my unique challenge is, guys. It's your challenge also. I would like you guys to know that once my reason for asking for assistance and just whatever is because you will understand greater as a larger group what's happening to you when you unpackage what's happening to me. I promise you, I know the architects, it's like they try it on me before they do it to you. How else can I tell you guys? I know a lot about this, and I want to make sure that I can help people, I have the ability. I have enormous healing. I have healing hands. I don't know what else to tell you. When I'm in a pure mind state and it's not cluttered and I'm not having whatever, I can just do amazing things. It's true. There's people that I promise you, if they're sick and they haven't been feeling well in a long time, I'm not going to make promises that I can't keep, guys, but I'm telling you that I've seen it happen before to know that it's not just imagination, that I can hold somebody's hand sometimes, especially when my mind is so, like when I'm glowing and I'm in a pure state of mind, uncluttered. The way it just flows and radiates, and I can feel it, like the hairs stand up on my arms. It's an electrical pathway. It's all of it. And there's just people I don't understand. I do understand. They just don't want this to be a reality. And it's all happening, folks. It really is, this thing that's going on. And so it's somewhat miraculous. And it's not about me, but there's something about this information that's associated with the story that I'm trying to reveal here that is going to solve a much greater problem in America and beyond. It really is. You just have to understand what I know and what it leads back to. So without saying it, I'm going to play the next 3 stories here. Let me get it up on the list. Actually, that's a bad one to do here. Let me do this. I have it all in one area, so let me get that on the screen here, and then I will start it up. All right, here we are. I almost pushed end broadcast instead of my application window. That would have been bad. All right. So I'm going to start off. I'm not going to play this entire playlist here, guys, but I'm just going to give you this is a playlist that I'll put here in the chat. Anybody who's never seen this inside my playlist section, this really is, this really is the core of my material relative to disclosure, all around 101, everything you need to know about why we're all have the problems that we do in America right now. This is really it. It has all of it. It'll tell you about how we have compromised phone lines, compromised internet routes, sniffer ports into all of the above that lets pretty elite cartels that control human and child trafficking, child pornography, ISIT routes, they all have all of this backdoored to their advantage and to disadvantage everyone else if they're ever discovered. It is a industrial strength system of brute force, just having top-down control of all of our information environment, and the people that rule it and control it. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds just a little bit too malicious and whatever to be true, and it was promoted by too many fake narratives, but sadly, yes, this is being managed by people that oftentimes are pedos. Okay? So child abusers. These are people that have formed a network wherein they get free, clear background checks and aliases and everything else like that. They can pretend to be completely different people and get tech industry jobs. They don't even have to have tech skills, guys. They really don't. It's pretty sad. But this is the reality. And they're put into some pretty serious positions. And if they're connected to one of the most powerful defense industry labs in the entire country, let alone world, that lied to get us into the Iraq war, was part of the documentation that denied atomic veterans benefits. And so while they were waiting for a long time to get an answer, they wind up dying of all the radiation sickness, things like that, guys. I mean, they wasted a few $100 trillion of the FBI's money. They had a debacle with the NSA related to Trailblazer that cost nearly $1 billion. I mean, guys, have you ever known somebody that effed up that many times in a job that kept on getting hired back? Yet SAIC always does. And then when you add into that, they've been able to merge into them, I should say, by acquisitions, all of these telecom interests relative to how our information is managed. So central warehousing of phone numbers, central warehousing of internet protocol addresses and domain addresses and IP addresses, all of those things basically flowing to a couple different companies that seem to have a nice little handshake deal of making sure that we're all under their thumb, and that the information we get basically is always managed by them. And if you don't know that in America, we have a wizard behind the curtain that's mostly managed by things connected to SAIC, Ericsson, and Leidos, then you're never going to figure out the overall problem. And so that's what these 3 articles are about. It's just kind of giving you a broad history of what's gone on since the 90s, where they took control over this company, this company, this company, this company. What does that mean in real people's plain language? And, then what do we do about it? I don't necessarily have that answer yet, guys. Sorry about my nose. I don't have that answer yet, but I've been doing things that I know are effective, even against something that seems like it can't be defeated. I've made an enormous amount of progress in helping explain this to people that are in the military, inside intelligence circles, and the population equally. I have. A lot of this information, because of everything I just told you, is concealed into what I call reality tunnels. Meaning to say that people like me they don't get their information to these others that would actually benefit from hearing it. I have to really get out there and take it on the road. I have to show people this. I have to actually kind of go, hey, look at me. And then when they look at me, then they follow me, and then I give them what's called full metal disclosure, and then they begin to look into me deeper. And then when they do, they learn all of this information. And then they go, whoa, I didn't know that. Sometimes they did. Other times they didn't know all of it, or they knew some of it, or it just helps fill in gaps in information that they did not know. Okay. So all right. So I'm going to play these articles, just the first few, and they're only about several minutes each, so it won't take too long, and then I'll be back. I might pause them in between to add some comments to it if things have changed or something like that in the material. So down on the oops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry. All right. Hello. I just want to have a quick rundown of the Ericsson and Nokia's presence in the wireless industry and how Ericsson's presence ties into the whole SAIC connection. Now, what a lot of people don't know, and I do from my, I guess, my job experience, is that your wireless networks, when you make a call from your cell phone to a tower, it gets processed by a series of base stations and switching equipment. And Ericsson is the manufacturer, research and developer, all that good stuff of this type of hardware. And so it's nearly impossible for you to make a call anymore without it being routed through their gear, just so you understand. They've acquired an enormous amount of companies, and they've been in business since 1876, started by Lars Magnus Ericsson in Stockholm, Sweden. And, you can see they employ quite a few people, huge company. And they have a lot of presence in the United States in particular. They're in virtually, I would say that anytime you travel past a tower and you see like a few different platforms on it, I can almost guarantee you that at least one of those rows of antennas is connected to one of their pieces of hardware, or the hardware that they acquired through their acquisition of Northern Telecom, which was before Ericsson moved in, used to be who had probably the most market share or close to the most market share. The other company that's always had the most presence US-wise is this company now, who's also done similar activities as far as acquisitions go, absorbing a lot of different companies. So Nokia Networks represents a partnership with Siemens. If you're not familiar with who they are, pretty big everything, energy, healthcare, infrastructure. Interesting partnership that, So they all basically from Finland with Nokia and Stockholm, Sweden with Ericsson. They have a good chunk of the global telecommunications markets just between those two companies. But this is more about Ericsson and SAIC specifically. But I also wanted to make sure that people are aware of that dynamic when they're making calls. And so when you hear all these things about incidental surveillance and wiretaps and everything like that, you have to remember that all these people get their equipment from somebody else. And so you can't make those calls. Like, you get your tech support, rather. You can't make your calls without being routed through these companies. So that means that if you're a wireless carrier or you're in an intelligence agency and your equipment fails, well, this is who supports you. And this is who supports you. That means that anybody affiliated with these networks also has similar access to those networks. And Ericsson in particular has something called Ericsson Managed Services. And sometimes EMS is what they call it. That could even be, they could manage entire markets or be the engineering staff for a wireless carrier. Like, their entire staff can sometimes be nothing but Ericsson contractors through the EMS relationship. So that's relevant because you have to trust this company in order to, when you think about national security, truly, you have to trust who's doing your telecommunications. And Ericsson does not have a good track record for trust. And that's where I'm going to talk about next. Here's an article from June 17th in Reuters, 2016. U.S. corruption probe puts renewed pressure on Ericsson. An inquiry over possible corruption dating back 3 years. Again, Ericsson meets with investors to address corruption. So it wasn't just that they were being accused. They really had to do some damage control. It wasn't just that incident. They had things going on in Greece and Romania and China. Here's another article, Reuters, CNBC covered it. It's a Swedish newspaper. Ericsson probed by U.S. over corruption in China. Here's a corruption reporting project. Executive alleges bribery at Ericsson. This was from 2013. Ericsson money was used to bribe Greek officials. U.S. authorities are investigating Ericsson on suspicions of corruption. Okay, that's a little redundant, but same time frame, I understand. Here's Ericsson's explanation. They have zero tolerance. So typical, what you would expect, right? Ericsson in crisis, CEO fired, suspicions of corruption. Well, I'd say, seems like it, right? can't forget this one. Erickson pays Bill Clinton $750,000 for speech and wins Iran sanctions exemption. The Obama administration excluded the telecom giant Erickson from sanctions against Iran after Erickson paid former U.S. President Bill Clinton $750,000 for a speech Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump told supporters at a campaign rally in Wilmington, Ohio on Thursday. I wonder why, Trump asked. It's funny, actually, because, I don't see, I'm not too concerned about that right now. But if people understand how technology works and the type of frequency fences you can place the people under, you'll understand why perhaps you're not getting the same person. It could have been planned that way, and it could be frequency. I'm willing to concede that's a possibility, even though I'm not a fan of the guy. Yeah, you'd be surprised the kind of things they can make you do and the types of misjudgments you make because the way the technology can work. Telcordia, the reason why you need to pay attention to this is because this is where all this ties together. So now you have a record of corruption with Erickson. They're probably not happy with Trump because he called out the $750,000 bribe. That's a whole side issue, though. Like I said, I'm not going to get too into the political part of this. Again, I didn't vote for him, and I didn't vote for Hillary either. Telcordia Technologies Inc., doing business as iConnective, is an American subsidiary of a Swedish telecommunications company, Ericsson. Shouldn't that concern us? Because aren't they the go-between between everything? And now we've seen that their hardware is in many of our cell towers. That's all of our politicians and officials are making their cell phone calls off of. That's concerning to me. Think about it. Okay, so you're saying that it doesn't really concern you because you're not that important. But what about the impact it has on all the people that are quote-unquote important? You see, because if Ericsson is providing interconnection technology and clearinghouse solutions for numbering plan, routing, call billing, and technical standard coordination between competing telecommunications carrier, then yes, that is the definition of the wizard behind the curtain. No question. What else is that? Why is their name on this? I'm glad you asked. I've covered this before, but we'll go over it again. So Telcordia, which is now owned by Ericsson, used to be owned by Science Applications International Corporation. Wow, there they are again. Remember these guys? Yes, those guys. So we have to expand our idea of where we apply our blame, I suppose. Because remember, there is intercepts that are possible really outside of everybody's awareness because they're just not looking. They're just not looking for this. You know what they're thinking about every time there's these accusations? They're like, well, who submitted a request for a wiretap? Well, who submitted a legal thing for this? Who got a FISA request? This has zero to do with that. Now, this is the resources that are all quote-unquote tapped in order to gain that data. But understand, you are gaining that data from people who game the data. They're always in between. Is that an unfair accusation? Well, it's not really an accusation. It's just their track record. They game things. They pay off people. They bribe. It's in their record. So I can say that. Over and over. Bribery. So yeah, they have a track record. They fired a CEO for doing it. We should trust these people, and we can't. And now their hardware is in a whole bunch of our cell towers, and what to do? Because I think that's a good question. I think that's a valid question. I think that's a valid concern to raise. I don't believe that this company with this kind of track record should have this type of control over our networks. I think that there's ways we can resolve that. But considering who these people have been bouncing this company back and forth between SAIC, Ericsson, SAIC, Ericsson, well, And then SEIC had our internet portals tied up since about 1995, if you remember that article. That's a lot of power, meaning. Hey, the reason why I think this is really relevant right now to discuss is because I want to add this. Huawei is the China-based company that you hear a lot about relative to 5G technology. And there's concerns in America about their influence over American telecommunications if they're allowed contracts over Western nations. And so you see the conundrum we're kind of in here, guys, globally, is that you have to be able to trust who your telecommunications are provided by. And increasingly, what we're all learning as a global society is that, he or she who controls the airwaves not only rules the universe, but tends to know that they run the universe. They tend to understand it. And they also tend to use it to their advantage. This is where I had to start kind of going, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Am I, making the right decisions for society and whatever by being in the career that I'm in? This is when I had a huge, whatever, I guess you could say, it all started to really catch up to me a little bit like, wow, I can't believe it. I cannot believe this is actually whatever. And once that realization hit me, and I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know where to go with my career. I didn't know whatever, but I was feeling so glowing at the time. I really thought that if I just made the right decisions, the ethical decisions, that, the right solutions would find me at the right time and vice versa. And that, everything would work out. But it was really, let me tell you something, Lisa, it was big. It was all around everything. I was learning simultaneously. My problem was not problem, but I guess it was a gift. I got a payload of negative information simultaneously with a payload of extremely beautiful, positive, reinforcing information. That was the Ka Codex that I've discussed. And without that extra payload of that sort of beautiful learning experience in tandem with the dark information, I think it would have left me in a really bad place psychologically, because that's when I was first being confronted that not everybody that I was around growing up were the most, I don't want to get into it, but I had to come to certain realizations about things, and that I was getting smacked in the face with information left and right. And the beautiful part of it, though, was simultaneously I was being gifted information in ways that I know had to have come from some external source that was, it's divine in some way. That's the best thing that I can tell you. When you're experiencing some form of, I guess you could say, divination, or an experience that is, that feels holy to you or spiritual to you. Whatever others perceive it is sort of irrelevant. I know what I experienced in that moment, and it was very, very significant. And it said to me that there's something that's watching over all of us that feels very benevolent towards us and wants us to succeed and ascend, and wants to see us all get to a better place where everything we exist in today, you're going to realize, was completely unnecessary. The suffering that we exist in today is completely unnecessary. We don't have to be there. We don't. It doesn't have to be that way. And it's funny, that word divine, in fact, for me, it's especially relevant because I know that my bridge of understanding occurred through something that was not just this sort of, I don't like abusing the term divine feminine because I feel like it's been overused to death in the New Age community. But I definitely have circumstances that I would apply it to. And I would consider the divine feminine to be the women and the energy, the feminine energy of the women that are within the tribe that I know when I'm around them. I know who they are. I mean, the guys too, but there's something that's unique about the yin yang kaba element to it, that it doesn't matter how it's manifesting. It's just that you just understand it. The men understand the women, and the women understand the men. And these take on all different variations of brotherly, sisterly, motherly, fatherly, and other variations too, friendly and otherwise. But the tribe that exists, it's just a strange thing, the way that they, I've just observed them. I know that they're out there. And the weird thing is that we all look so different from one another. But when I'm around one of these people, the way our ideas synchronize, even though they're different, they fit like puzzle pieces, and they fit like gears in a very complex machine that needs to work. And I was around some of these people in my work history, is all I'm telling you, to know that I know there's people that are exploited similar to the way that I was. Somebody was using them because they did have good intentions. They did have pure intentions. These are people that would absolutely do whatever it took to help you if you ever needed it. And they were being used, the same way I got used. And it came to my awareness later on that some of the people that used them were close to me, and that, how would they be able to distinguish after it all happened? Because what I learned is that behind the scenes, some people close to me just sort of went on like a wrecking ball of confidence games and rug sweeps on people that were close to me, to where they all got burnt out by the family name. And they were people that, it was effectively because some of them were coworkers or ones that just I hadn't talked to in years and years, that got talked into doing some of this work that was a little bit in the range of like using CGI face masking and playing different characters. They got talked into doing it for, quote, good reasons, only to learn that they were duped. They weren't doing it for good reasons. They got duped. And so that caused problems, because some people close to me basically used some of the things that I was researching as a way to say that they were helping defeat similar things. And it turned out that they weren't doing that at all. They weren't actually helping solve this problem. They were just reinforcing it and making it even stronger and more difficult to decipher. And so I'm reaching out to those folks to say that, look, I know a lot of you because you communicate to me in other ways. I really hope that we can just get to the place where that I have some people that I know are interested in my material from the sidelines that want to talk to you. And I think that you're going to want to talk to them. And I think that if I can get you together with them and them together with you, that we'll form into something that is just so un-F-withable, you guys. Like, if you really understand the intelligence of these people and the strong, courageous, they have both warrior instinct and the purest of hearts, but they're just fun people to be around. They know charismatically how to motivate people because it's just who they are. They're very inspirational people. They know we were selected for a reason to be in our jobs. I'm just letting you guys know that. We weren't just good technical workers. We know how to motivate people, not through manipulation, but because we believe in what we do. And they learned that if they could just get us to believe in our mission, even if it was under false pretenses, that we could talk anybody into doing our mission. This is when you become very aware. Look, I'm a civilian, okay? But this is when I really began to feel greater sense of empathy for our veterans. The number of times they've gotten duped into supporting something or doing something they felt was the right thing, only to learn what a rug sweep that is on a person's perception. You know what I mean? Afterwards, or you arrive someplace and you go through all this training and everything like that, just to have some CIA creep tell you to guard a poppy field for the Taliban. Crap like that happening to our soldiers, and eventually it wears you down. It wears down a society, and you have to ask yourself, who's really doing this, guys? Are these American decisions? I mean, just letting you know, do these feel like American decisions to you, or do they feel like they're kind of coming from someplace outside? Why would America do this to itself? Why would people who love America want to see our soldiers suffer unnecessarily or go into missions that they know to be under false pretenses? What's their motivation? Because it's happened too many times for us to sit back as civilians and say that, oh, it just happens. Oh, well, guys, that's what this material is about. I really do want there to be a better bridge between the civilian population and the military population, and yes, even frontline law enforcement, because you need to understand what they go through, and they must understand your experience better. Seriously. And we have to get together. We have to be together. This is the time. I need you to understand that if we can just make this work as one working group, get our truth party together, where we just say to each other, like, you know what, we can all be different. We can all have different values to a degree. You know, guys, there's limits. We have to have some commonality in what we accept as truth. Otherwise, it's all effed. And so I would tell you guys that if you're trying to establish things like that, that yes, your beliefs do matter. And I know for me, I wouldn't have been a very good partner for people for a very long time because I accepted too many falsehoods as truths. And so that left me dangling out there by myself for a long time without a lot of support, because they let that happen to me for a reason. It was to teach me to be more critical of the information that I was taking in. And I was told that by them. They're like, look, we weren't going to let you die or anything like that, but we were going to let some of these wolves attack you because you weren't learning otherwise. You know, you weren't learning. And when you don't get smarter, Gabe, you don't seem to understand what you mean to human DNA and what that does to us when you're not smarter for us. And what a position it must be to not be able to tell a person that they have this inside them and they have to just be smarter. Like approaching their ego that way. So I just need you to know that I do care and it matters to me. And I want everybody to have a seat at the table. And I'm so tired of people just being ousted and not given a voice. And they matter. These are people that matter. And they're pushed out of the way by who? By people who literally tell you within their ciphered fake name that they're liars. They lie for a living. They put it right out there. They're willing to say any lie to put our soldiers in danger just to drive some other agenda. For what reason? It's not as simple as selling newspapers, ladies and gentlemen. It really isn't. It's time that we just sort of accepted that some of these people truly do practice a religion that is effectively a death cult, where they sign our soldiers up to die. If you won't accept this, you're doing them a disservice. Now, accept it intelligently. Don't just buy into all these characters online going, there's a death cult, man. Yeah, let's go get them, man. They're the Illuminatis. No. Intelligently understand what these people are about. I need you to know, guys, they literally believe that when blood is spilled on soil, and this is not inaccurate, the energetic imprint that's left behind and the vibratory frequency of what is left within the plasma platelets inside the blood that is spilled, the experience of the trauma of the soldier and the population, and how that affects the grid, who all those people are concentrated on, who is the leader that put them in the position, who's the president, who's everything. These occultists make the deals behind the scenes and then send people into harm's way. Now, for a long time, they were able to do this in a way that was like, I don't know, not very obvious, where it kind of seemed like they might actually be on the right side. But now they try so frequently and aggressively, and it's just like they just keep going like, yeah, you're going to start a war, right? You're going to go to war, right? Leading to war, right? Oh, another war, right? Yeah, send some more people over there to go to war, right? And it's all from the sides where you're thinking it shouldn't come from. I thought all the right wingers were the war hawks. I thought it was the Republicans who were the war hawks. No, not in the last 5 years. Where have we been seeing the war hawking come from? Mockingbird journalists that have more leftist connections telling us to go to war. Then the same ones are saying, don't look at these people, Antifa, as any more than a decentralized idea that are marching in the streets. Okay. Now, do you understand the media role, especially when you add in potential connections to the Chinese Communist Party via Chinese ownership? The loyalty of certain citizens within China when they have foreign investments, they're going to make decisions that are loyal to the CCP, or else they risk not being able to be in China. So they can risk their citizenship there. They can't have their dual thing or whatever. That means to say if they get majority ownership or they get percentages of media organizations in the United States, they are motivated directly by law to make decisions that are loyal to the Chinese Communist Party and not to America, but they're allowed to have foreign ownership in American companies. Again, guys, you can make a lot of arguments against or for, right? You could say, well, if you paid your bills, America, you wouldn't have so much Chinese money in your companies. Touche. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but there is monetary market manipulation. There is currency manipulation going on a very broad scale. And, you know, guys, when you add in the digital yuan, which just got launched by China, digital currency, I mean, guys, once America goes digital US dollar, you think they're not going to do something similar? We already see what they do with high frequency trading algorithms, dark pool trades, that 3-day window they can borrow shares and then pretend they have something they don't. You know how much money can be made? I mean, that's like an ATM machine to a certain class of people. And I'm not in that class. And most people that I know aren't in that class. I don't know anybody who's in that class. That's like a whole separate level of trading. You have to be one of those people that owns a trading firm. But I mean, the amount that they're able to borrow out of thin air and pretend they have. Okay. So it's kind of turned into that within our monetary system overall. We have this huge problem now. And one of the reasons why I did the thing a couple of days ago, which is to kind of show you, like, do you guys understand that we're in an era right now where right now, one of the most solid investments, well, it's volatile, but like it was nearly a guarantee that a person that put money into a fictional coin created by a guy from Portland in Australia out of thin air by just copying another coin, making a couple slight modifications to it and uploading it and saying, this is Dogecoin. It's based on the face of a dog. It's like a comic book character. Isn't it fun? And then it went on to become a globally traded currency. Like that stayed in the top 10 currencies that was like traded against everything else, guys. It was literally the blue chip stock of that crypto market. And it just has some ridiculous dog on its face, on the coin. And again, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Just like the GameStop thing. GameStop is probably one of the most worthless companies right now when you think about it. Nobody's going into the store and buying games anymore, hardly. Not compared to before. GameStop is going through the same dynamic that Tower Records and, you know, who else, guys? You know, Best Buy to some degree, but they at least have other things they sell. But if you notice, you go into Best Buy now, that they used to have huge music selections, and now you go in and they hardly have any shelves dedicated to it because nobody's buying CDs. They're buying digital music. They buy a file. They buy a group of files and they put it on their drive. They're not going around and getting whatever. So everything's changed in the way that we get information is the point. Anyways, guys, I didn't mean to get too far off topic here. I guess it's not off topic, but that was all pretty relevant. But I before I continue on with this here, yeah, well, just so you know, Lisa, I want to make sure it's very clear to everybody. If there's one thing that I'm not doing here in Vegas, it's gambling. I would never do that because it's just too stupid. But yeah, it's Vegas is. I haven't put any money into a slot machine or on a gambling table in years. I can't remember the last time I even thought to do it. So that's not one of the things that brings me to this place. And I would never feel compelled to risk anything like that. It's just not something that I do. But I'm not thinking you're saying that or anything like that. But I know that's just one of those things that people think anytime you're in a place like this. So be clear, folks, the reason why I would be here is just simply because for years, I actually went to high school in Vegas. I went to Western. I graduated from here even, and what brought me here was my father's relationship to the Department of Energy. And it's, otherwise I never would have any connection to Las Vegas. And, I've never enjoyed casinos or gambling. It was just one of those things where when we lived here, we would only go to the Strip when people came into town and wanted the tour. Then we'd go, okay, here's Caesar's Palace, here's the Mirage, blah, 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 Back then the volcano going off was like a big deal. And, Treasure Island was just being built and things like that while my family was living here. So it was just one of those things where because they were just starting to expand into the corporate model and go away from like the old sort of like Bugsy, days of like mafia casinos into something that's more of a modern mafia, corporatized model of mafia. It hasn't changed, guys. It's just now they own it through hedge funds and companies and that are, have corporate IDs and names that are just as occulted as the mafia had. But yeah, I've never liked it. I don't like the uncertainty of it. And I've just seen it cause too many problems for people, that I cared about, to where I just don't feel compelled to even try it. But yeah, like I remember when I was younger though, like somebody would give me, like money and be like, here, you put it in the machine for me. It's really weird. If I put the money in the machine for somebody else, they'll win. I'd be like, here you go. So maybe that's the thing. It's like a Midas touch thing. It doesn't work for me, but if I do it for somebody else, they get the luck. That's fine. That's okay. Because I don't like, I don't know. I'm not even comfortable with it. I've never have been. Anyways, getting back to it here. Oh my God, Lisa. Yeah, you know what? I can actually do a little bit of decrypt on the Harvest 91 thing. That might be a good idea. I mean, as long as I'm in the area, I can kind of tell you guys that was when I had a big awakening that there was something way, way closer to me going on with these false flags. Because right around the time of Harvest 91 shooting in Las Vegas, and there's been another one that wasn't a mass shooting, but was definitely an event that happened last year. I've had a strong suspicion that this is connected to a lot of the same things that I've been talking about with like the National Defense Authorization Act, Smith-Bundt Act, things where they're allowed to create propaganda events within the United States in order as part of these larger pieces of legislation. And then once you track back the etymology of how they construct those events and who would be in charge of it and why, it would be very, very difficult to understand it. So yeah, I agree, Lisa, that Harvest 91 was the break point. And that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to explain to people that if you're within Las Vegas, like law enforcement and FBI or anything like that, and you yourselves are a person that said, I know something's wrong with this. Because I was looking at the body language of people from the FBI when that whole event happened, and some of them were just like, they just had this look on their face like, you guys, it didn't go down like this. I don't even know how they're trying to pass this off on you guys. This is not what happened. I could see it in their eyes, guys. Like they looked like themselves, like they did not want to be there and they did not want to be selling the narrative. And then there was another group that was like, completely there with their chest up and everything like that. Like, like, hey, this is exactly what happened and this is extremely good. And, this is the narrative and this is exactly what's going on here. So, all right, everybody, let's go on now. We done? And you see people behind the person that's all self-confident. They're just kind of like, it's like Richard Crenna, like I was telling you earlier in Hot Shots Part 2, where he's like, when the food is extremely good, the accommodations are wonderful. It was like that. I'm not trying to be comical. I felt bad for them. And so I make appeals to you in law enforcement. If I've been a dick sometimes, like I've raked you over the coals too many times, please don't take it the wrong way. I'm frustrated. I'm wondering why there's not more of us that are partnering together, that are trying to fix this as reformers who know what's really going on. I know something's going on. Some of you got into this for the right reasons. I know you didn't just get into this to like look the other way or to take a payoff or to let somebody tell you that something that's real, that's is fake, is actually real, and try to get you to say that to others. It's not fair. And you shouldn't be asked to do that if you know that there's real people who need help. And I think that we know here in Vegas, real people need help right now. There's real people that really need to get out of some of these systems that are underground, that are really there. And guys, there is no place where these underground systems probably are more vast than around here because of that whole Yucca Mountain project and what they learned through the vitrified process of tunneling, systems all the way back to the 90s. They practiced all these things out in the middle of the desert in, Area 51 area. And guys, just look it up. Yucca, Yucca Mountain Repository. That's what got my family in Las Vegas. That's the only reason why I lived out here, was my father was assigned to the DOE relative to things supporting Yucca Mountain Repository. Just like when I was in Colorado, it was to support the Rocky Flats plutonium cap factory. Just like when we were in Hanford, it was to support the Hanford nuclear reservations and reactor and cleanup project. It named Whoops. Whoops. Named Whoops. Washington Power something system. I mean, I'm just like, oh my God, you guys. Wow. But yeah, there was a lot of things going on, I'm telling you, with the whole Harvest 91. And so last year, that was part of my articles that I did. I was calling into question some of the narratives. And again, guys, I'm not a big Alex Jones tinfoil guy on these topics typically, but there was way too many data associations I could recognize in that story. The guy that was named Paddock. I don't know if you know this, guys, but there's a street named Paddock in Las Vegas, and it's next to a street named Cash. And I thought that was super interesting because I've noticed this as a typical thing. If they're trying to like get you to look away from one thing, they'll steer you into another thing that has an identical name. And so, again, it doesn't mean that Paddock has something happening. But what I was explaining to people was it's a little bit strange that like there was things involving cash, like monetary cash. And then in the story, like, well, it was told that he had this much cash on him and that, Mr. Paddock was carrying these. And I'm going, Paddock cash. Paddock just feels like a fake name to me. Like, I don't think that anybody's named Paddock. Braddock. I remember Braddock was Chuck Norris's name inside the Missing in Action series. So that's definitely a name, folks. Braddock does exist. I know because I had a teacher with that last name when Missing in Action Part 3 came out, and in the commercial they like Chuck Norris like rises up like this, from the thing, like with his gun up from the water, like literally like from underwater just comes up, and then like somebody just yells out from a distance, Braddock, and you see Chuck Norris going, across the way. I always had this vivid memory of that. And sorry to go off topic here, but I would do that as like a joke to my teacher, Mr. Braddock. I would like go into the classroom area when it wasn't my class or whatever, and I would just like yell as I went by. You're like, Braddock, just like in the commercial, and then I would just run off. That was my sense of humor when I was in junior high, in case you guys are wondering, what informs my silliness. Anyways. How did I get on that topic here, Braddock? Oh yeah, Paddock. Okay. And so I did some articles. I guess I could show them to you sometime, guys, but it's just, that's kind of how I try to at least like offer some alternative ways of looking into these news stories to say like, well, what if you learned that the whole reason why they created a character that did that shooting and that they emphasized cash here and there so much wasn't because the guy was truly named Paddock or had cash payments, but because there's a street corner that was on Paddock and Cash where things happened that people connected to this story want you to not look at. And the way they do it is to get you to look at it, but redefine it. It's repurposing of the terms, boo. And then you're now looking at Mr. Paddock, who had a whole bunch of cash and bought guns, instead of that maybe somebody was selling guns on paddock and cash. See how that might work? Because maybe that happened. I'm not saying that, guys. I don't want you to bother anybody on paddock and cash or anything like that, because those are actual streets in Las Vegas. But what I'm saying, though, is that it's the thing that I've learned nearly every single time that they do this, is that one story is meant to conceal another by putting all of the surface details in the falsified story that has elements of reality mixed in, making it all 10 times more confusing. This is the whole nature of the false flag, the whole nature of the whatever. So I'm not saying that it was a false flag in the classic sense, except that nearly every aspect of it ringed as somewhat, look, it has all the markers. That's the best thing I can say. It definitely has the markers of one. And I just can't accept it all at surface value. However, there was a lot of like buzz around that there was real deaths that did actually occur with that. So I don't want people to say that I'm suggesting that nobody died in the crowd or that nobody died in the shooting, because I don't believe that at all. And I don't think that that's even the case in the vast majority of these quote events that people label as false flags. I think that the point of them is to get rid of real evidence, while simultaneously creating the fictionalized event that goes boo in front of everybody and gets them all to look, in the wrong directions. So instead of you maybe going into researching a different series of information sets surrounding paddocks and cash, I'll tell you why I think that that's a cipher. I don't think it's necessarily the street corner, but that's one interpretation. I think it's because literally the way that they make payment deliveries is, if you're familiar, guys, a paddock is a circle where they train horses. So if you've ever seen them, they put them out near, they're just like a contained environment, just a big circle with a fence, and the horse is brought into the paddock and they just take them around the circle and train them. Okay, so a paddock. Well, I was actually given this as information by a whistleblower that told me that one of the things that they do when they're making drug payments or CT payments, human trafficking, child trafficking payments, is they've established paddocks in different areas where a drone can fly over and make a very like boom, like it'll just drop it like a freaking missile. The money can just land if they're trying to do things involving cash or products or even bricks of cocaine and things like that. They've just learned how to do these little time drops where the drop goes like an Amazon package. Have you noticed that whole Amazon thing never really happened? It didn't really come to fruition. You're not getting your packages brought up to like the 30-story building, in New York. A dumb idea, if you ask me, because the first time one of those packages gets dropped, then it's going to happen. What kind of liability is going to be involved with that? I mean, come on, guys, really? You honestly think you're going to be able to take packages up like that safely every time? I just don't think it's going to work that way. Anyways. Okay. That's good. Lisa, if you know things about the Vegas shooting, then yeah, I haven't done enough material on that, but I know some things too. I just haven't discussed it in detail. So that might be, that's an interesting thing to bring up. I'm just telling you, like I did my own research too. And I was even researching things involving the finances of casinos and things like that, and not necessarily them individually, but who has majority ownership in the casinos that were there or nearby. And that's when I really had a whole bunch of revelations into what's really going down out here. I mean, that it was really like, wow, now I get it. Now I understand the whole intersection between the money laundering, who's doing it, who owns all these companies, how they're buying them, the money laundering is basically being used to create like false legitimacy to companies where they're just buying up corporations under different hedge funds and different, whatever, but it's all the same family, you guys. How else do I tell you this? They'll pretend to be an Arab family that owns all these things in Saudi Arabia, but it's them here in America. And that's a false ID that they have back there in the Arab Emirates. Meanwhile, that character that's over there is played by an actor and just buys up tons of real estate with the money that's made over here, pretending to be some, whatever. And they'll usually have some Germanic variation on an Arab name. Al Bader. That's it, dude. I've seen them use that exact one, Al Bader. Well, a Bader, spelled B-A-D-E-R, that means bloodletter or bloodletting, like barber of bloodletting in German is a Bader. And so like B-A-D-E-R, bother, I guess is how you would say it in that language or whatever. But I was thinking to myself, whoa, dude, they're actually using the name El Badr, and it's not even a real Arab family. It's like a Germanic variation on it. You see what I'm saying? And then I would see them buy like $18 million mansions in rural Oregon, just outside of Portland, near Rosemont Road. Yeah, you know that Biden controversy called Rosemont, Seneca? Did you guys know that in this neighborhood where all this real estate's going on, there's a major intersection named Rosemont, and there is a very significant road named Seneca? And that I've been researching this whole Rosemont thing going all the way back to 2017. And that a lot of those things involving Rosemont also are connected to the latest Portland shooting involving that ciphered name, Mr. Z. Del Long, the officer. Because if you ever to look at his badge, you know, they wouldn't have his full name there, guys. It would probably say Z, because his name was Zachary De Long, Officer Zachary De Long. So the way you would read that is Z Del Long, Z Del Long. Let me just type that out. All right, so now that you saw that, actually, I'll keep that up here. Let me show you something really quick here. And I'm not going to say there's any connection here, but you know. Well, guys, I'm not going to say one thing leads to another, but I will tell you this. I have as firsthand testimony from a direct witness that a certain person connected to this organization literally nicknamed me Guacamole Gabe. That's how notorious I am within certain circles of certain businesses. So, you know, I don't know. You think Officer Zedel Long exists? Or do you think there might be something else going on there? Because if you notice here, you know, guys, I'm not going to say whatever, but they did own barges. Ship dismantling, explorations, ship breaking. So they do ship breaking. So that means that they've had significant, you know, presence on ports, especially in Portland. All right. Now let's now look into something here, guys. Since you know that they basically are started in what 1916. Now let's look into they're a port owner. Now let's look into something called Shanghai. Shanghaiing or crimping is the practice of kidnapping people to serve as sailors by coercive techniques such as trickery, intimidation, or violence. Crimps flourished in port cities like London and Liverpool and in San Francisco. Oh, where is this, guys? San Francisco, Portland, Astoria, and Seattle. All regions where who has significant presence. You know, guys, I'm not saying one thing leads to another. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking, why is it Officer Z Del Long? Unless you guys actually think that that's something that's real. But if you accept that it's not real, then what do you think maybe, I don't know, it might be? I don't know. And I'm not saying that one thing leads to another. To me, it's just very strange that that exists as a thing, that person I've done some significant research on behind the scenes, and I have not released it publicly, which I find very interesting. And that there's certain roads connected to the Hunter Biden scandal that connect to this, which I find interesting, and I cannot discuss all together openly and publicly. But I can tell you that one of these addresses has a huge paddock in it. And that, well, a certain person hacked my phone one time and actually forced me to go to the house next door to do my job. And when that happened, the person that answered the door, connected to a certain person in this family, looked at me and said, "Priorities," grabbed a bag from me and slammed the door after I was right next door to this person's house. I'm just letting you guys understand just how powerful some people are and how things can kind of be manipulated in the background involving information systems. Now, full disclosure, the reason I know so much inside information about said person is because I spent significant time dating one of the people that one of this very powerful socially elite members of Portland also dated for a while. The difference is that said person I think just picked me over this person because they're kind of I don't know, they've got issues. Not the nicest person in the world, put it that way, in my opinion, based on the things that I've heard. Big into barges and kind of considered Portland socialites, but, you know, people that kind of know better. Oh, my God, the Kermit Roosevelt? Someday I'll find that rainbow connection. Anyways, guys, you might find it interesting to know. You know, I told you about Ray Donovan, how Ray Donovan has Liev Schreiber in it, and Liev Schreiber looks like Walter Schreiber. You may find it interesting to know that a certain little Portland socialite connected to this family also looks a little bit like he could be like Liev Schreiber's uglier younger brother. And that he's the same guy that nicknamed me Guacamole Gabe, and I'll let all of you keen researchers out there figure the rest out. But if you're from Portland and you know anything, you'll probably be able to draw all the other puzzle pieces. And if you know me from the Yelp days back in Portland, back in 2000, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's me. I'm that guy. I was doing all those reviews, and you may recognize the Waffle Bunny because I've brought him back to do little things. His name is Oolong. Those unfamiliar. It's not my invention. I just borrow footage of this rabbit named Oolong, which I also find interesting when you look at this one here. Because, see, as all this was happening, this whole scandal relationship-wise, that's when I was posting pictures of Oolong, the rabbit, on the internet. And that's when this particular person with a name very similar to this particular cipher involving this shooting in Portland was, you know, I don't know. What's up, 99 Problems? I'll put it that way. I just wonder, guys, how the FBI is looking at all of us with a straight face, letting all this go on. And I'm just letting you guys know that all of this is in Portland. I don't know who's doing what exactly and for what reason or why that particular synchronicity and correlation in data exists, except to say that most of it just stinks all to high hell. That's all. And when you consider that there's a lot of people fictionalizing events in Portland to create chaos and discord as a distraction from the corrupted Leos, as well as the Antifa people that support the underground trafficking of Shanghai. The whole Shanghai economy is underground, ladies and gentlemen. So just remember that. Okay, sorry. I didn't nearly finish any of these stories tonight, so I may have to go on for a little bit longer. Sorry to those of you who did not want me to do that, but I think tonight might be an extra half hour. I don't think I'm going to get off because I just have too much to say. So yeah, guys, if we're looking forward to that, great. I'm going to probably be on for longer than the average time. So maybe another 40 minutes or so is probably when I'll cut it off because I want this material to be finished. I want the video part to go out, but I didn't even mean to talk about a lot of these topics, guys, because it was really about, well, yeah, actually, this is perfect to talk about the more I think about it, because this is something that I can speak to that's experiential, that's personal. Guys, everything I just showed you, man, you know, this was all kind of close to me out there in Portland. All right. And that particular situation, literally, I got so much information about said group because I literally dated somebody that dated him just to know the guy hates me. and that he's an overprivileged trust fund baby that gets like $10,000 a month from his family. And still, I guess after what? I mean, I'm not even with this woman, for Christ's sake. We're not anywhere close to being together. We're long over. She's not with she's with another guy entirely in a different part of the country. So what the hell is up with this dude? Like, what is his problem? It's bizarre to me, man. That was years ago. This has all basically been, it was over and done with, you guys. Like this whole whatever issue that he may have been jealous about. This whole relationship thing like ended, I think, like back in 2010, 2011. It is 2021, dude. What decade are you living in, dude? I mean, it's okay to like somebody. I admire her. She's amazing. She's a great person. But let me tell you something, dude. Get the over it. Starting riots and shit over it. What? I mean, if that's what's happening, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. But this is weird. If it's a true synchronicity, okay. I'm open to that. It's possible, but it doesn't look like it to me, to be honest with you. I don't know, though. It'd be interesting to find out what's really happening, guys. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because I have so many records that connect to one of these people's other businesses. And there's a lot of clues that have been dropped to me to say that there's people that are in Portland that use all the same names that are connected to it. What else can I tell you guys? They've owned barges in Portland since 1916. And crimps flourished in port cities like Portland, Astoria, and Seattle. You know, so pretty much as long as Shanghai has existed, human trafficking has existed. Some people have been there the whole time. Always connected to the ports, always connected to the underground. And then somebody started giving me a lot of information from the sideline. So I'm not saying one thing leads to another, but let me explain something to you guys because I can't say everything. But there's a certain area, there's a dock area, actually an industrial area close to the ports and the docks that's kind of near like Kirby and Thompson. So you're getting closer to like Swan Island and all that area down there where the boats come in. So the tip off that I got is that, well, somebody who used to run a business that's really close to Kirby and Thompson basically converted that old business that they always kind of had under two different names and two different locations to trick some people that were close to it. They converted that business over to another business with a fake Asian owner that alleges to sell Chinese food wholesale. And I was told that that's just the same guy who owns it. He has a fake owner, fake, buffer character, just like the mafia does. And that it's just a front for bringing in other things from Asia, including people and trafficking. But nobody cares. And then what I would like you to do is, now that you know how cheeky certain people are about putting their little ciphers and calling cards and puzzles out there when they do their deceptions, I would like you to go down to Kirby and Thompson, or anybody who's would like to spend more one-on-one time with me as an investigator individually or in law enforcement, however, but I'll show you and prove to you how this is all like really how they do it. Go down there, and a certain name I mentioned recently, you'll find other ciphers down there. Like right across from where he owns a business, you'll find like a warehouse owned by Jimmy Z. McDell. Or Dell, you see where I'm going with this. There is no Jimmy Z. McDell, and there is no whatever. It's like, if you drive down that same route, though, you're going to find that it's like they will just pretend the place across the street is owned by somebody else. But if you have eyes to see, you're going to know that it's not. And then when you translate that to building after building, block after block, and then what it's close to and what certain people have historically had control over, you see where, guys, we really need to get some people into a more safe environment. I promise you, I have so much information that I could be giving people that if you can provide, I'm asking you guys, I'm telling you, any of you who can help give me a bridge. I need you to understand how powerful of a force I am to bringing all of this to the surface. I cannot do it alone, though. And the people that are out there that want to talk have seen how I've been treated. And it doesn't incentivize them to step forward if you care. That's what I'm explaining to you. Okay. So far, though, I've had a lot of luck. I'm saying that it does make some people feel better about it. But I have to get to a place. And I'm asking guys, as many of you who are interested in doing this, who really have the truth in your pocket and really want to see something positive happen, that change-wise, to really decipher and decrypt these things in a meaningful way, you must know I've got a lot of truth in my pocket. You must know that I have a lot of answers. And that it's not just because of me, and it's not just because uniquely of what I individually know. It's what all the people that are waiting on the sidelines to help out are seeing what's being done. They're kind of going, all right, guys, I see what Gabe's doing, and this is cool. He's doing the ant bridge thing. He's going to find out if he stretches himself out there, how far does he stretch out before somebody meets him halfway and says, cool, dude, I'm going to be the other piece of this bridge. Let's get everybody crossing it now. Let's create the arc. Let's create it now. Because, guys, the people that know, the people that have what we have inside them, they're all being basically being whittled down because they want them terrorized. They want them in a fear state. They want them in the victim state. They want them in the stress state. And if more of us were out of that and just in a co-creative, coexistent, creating architecture and plans and solving problems together type state, working group state, where this is what we become and we turn it into something meaningful, an actual organization that just gets out the truth. And it just starts by just forming that basic structure, guys. I mean, it literally, if you just want to take my material and just brute force attack it as a start, fine. To me, that's a great start. Come at it at the sense that you're trying to, well, look, if you're trying to discredit something, then that's going to be your goal, right? So I'm not saying like discredit it, but I mean, no, review it, find out, ask me pointed questions, put me in that type of state of whatever to where I will actually be able to address everything appropriately, whatever by whatever, to tell you how much I know and why. But guys, you must know that whatever the architecture it took to create Z. Del Long and the other victim must have some degree of participation that exists beyond the local police. Can we agree? It's got to be pretty deep, whoever's supplying the ability to create these characters and things, if, in fact, that's what's happening. It's a big if. We have to say if always because we don't know. I don't know. Synchronicities sometimes do happen in strange ways that we don't really have explanations for. And I accept that. Sometimes these things truly are just very, very strange and bizarre synchronicities. But if it was just this, guys, if it was simply his name, it's not just that. That shooting in Portland happened where I lived in Portland before I just left the city, and moved out towards Estacada with my folks when we were still getting along. I had one apartment, the last place that I actually was able to support myself in and everything else like that without living with other people. Yeah, that's where I was. And it was in Lentz District, right around the corner from where all that happened. And I can tell you guys, I know for a fact, it is a Rebecca Oddfellow stronghold. They've got a lodge right next to that frickin' park. Everything I just told you involving ciphers and puzzles is classic Rebecca and Oddfellow, especially of the order of the ones that came in to the Tule Lake, Merrill, Oregon area, Tule Lake, California, to the Newell concentration camp. Or actually, it's called Tule Lake Segregation Facility, where they were separating the Nazis, and they also did the same to the Japanese in the same camp. They housed Japanese prisoners of war for a while, and also internment prisoners that were U.S. citizens that were under suspicion of being, with Japan during the war. And then they also housed, after the Japanese were moved out of there, they housed German and Italian Nazis that were brought in 1945. All right. And it's this leftover of Nazi families, folks, was what I'm telling you, connects to everything that I'm showing you here. And I can show you guys. In fact, if somebody wants to, this to me is one of the things I would really like to work on as a project. If somebody wants to join me on this and help me fund it, perhaps this might be something we can do to help both of us and get you a better understanding. If you'd like to join me, maybe what we could do is film a documentary together that would just help. I'll just go place to place and document my personal connection to it. I'll just take you to the spots. I need somebody to film me doing this anyways, guys. I can't do this on my own. And it's actually a really serene and peaceful drive, and everything that's out there, there's enormous natural beauty, tons of like rivers, lakes. Crater Lake is in this region, Klamath Falls area. So as far as like the things to do that are like tourist in nature, it's all out there. It's gorgeous. It's an incredibly beautiful region of the country that's pretty much untouched for the most part. It doesn't have a lot of like industry. There's not a lot of activity out there. Again, there's just enough to support things to where you're not like, you can find hotels and things like that and of fairly decent quality if you need them. But what I'm saying though is that it's a nice departure from the madness that's going on within the cities currently. So that could be another way for folks that want to like do something a little bit different. I could actually take you on a guided tour of where the Nazis came in into Northern California, into Southern Oregon, and that area. This is where it gets interesting, folks, is that I'm not trying to make it negative. This is just to help you understand. Then once we're there, I can do all kinds of studies involving caves because there are so many cave systems in that region. It's called the Lava Bed National Monument. There's some actual ones that have staircases and lights and everything like that you can go into that are officially run by the park services. And then there's other ones that are more obscure that not a lot of people know about, but you can find entrances to all around the place. And so there's a lot you can do with sort of like the caves and things like that relative to performing measurements and learning like, what are the special energies involving caves, taking those types of before and after wellness measurements of what your biofields and your bioelectricity, or rather your biofield relative to your body voltage is. That would all be a really fascinating study to do in an area like that too, I think, especially with the right series of samples and people. Blood groups is what I mean. I think you could really get some compelling data as far as how different people are affected by different environments relative to cave systems. And some of the most powerful energies, I think, really, if you really get down to it, there's such volcanic, kinetic water flow, cave type energy in that region. You can feel it. I mean, it's everywhere. And so I'd be kind of curious to do a study there. So if there's other people that are kind of like interested in my biofield things and want to maybe take part in that, that's just another thing that I'm thinking of, guys. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what the thing to do next is. I'm very open to where to go. Sometimes I feel like I should just kind of avoid Oregon for a while. I don't know, I don't know. But at the same time, I feel like to leave it to the people that are kind of taking it over right now was sad. It would be really sad. They really shouldn't have it. They really shouldn't be able to sort of, I don't know. There's just something going on over there, guys, that Portland was challenged, I guess. I guess you could say with some of its cultural things, but it wasn't like this. That's the best thing I could tell you. But I want to play the rest of these articles so I can get this done, this part here. So let me do that really quick. So you remember what I'm telling you here about Telcordia being a major architect of the telecommunication system, including caller ID, mobile, all that stuff, and how they arrange the complex relationships between the carriers. Okay, well, SAIC had the same role in the internet with internet solutions. So you see how they position themselves over telecommunications and the internet simultaneously, right at a critical moment where these technologies were expanding. So they had the first backdoor into all these things if they wanted to do that. Do you think they released control over these companies after they got rid of them completely? Or is it possible there's still a lot of the original staff there? Doesn't mean they're doing something, but if you understand the nature of SAIC and what they really are, where they do business from. I mean, Tyson's Corner. This is basically the hotbed of intelligence. They're all there in this area. I mean, you're within a few minutes of this, basically, McLean. Same thing. And where you find Tyson's Corner, McLean, you find CIA. That's not just me saying it, okay? That's what people know. That's the intelligence field, okay? So they're all there together, and this is what they're doing, and they manage our telecommunications network and have control over our internet, a lot of influence. I think it's reasonable to say that if there's people out there that are threatening potentially, or just by virtue of them being whistleblowers could potentially be a threat, that they might have a world of hell come down on them because, you never know. Because these companies can do those things, apparently. Are they? I'll let everybody else kind of be the judges to that, because see, here's the problem. In order for us to research this, we're having to ask these very people for the records. It's back to the same issue. You understand that? When you're trying to build cases about whether or not these things are happening, we keep getting back to the same place. The gatekeeper. And it just keeps coming back. So what are we going to do? I have some ideas, for ways that we can do transitions that are beneficial to everybody and cuts the cord a little bit from people that may not have our better interests at heart. And if anybody wants to explore legal, lawful ideas on how to make that work for everybody, I'm all for it. Thanks. All right. So I just wanted to talk again about the connection to SAIC and internet domain names. Sorry, my voice is starting to get scratchy here. Something happened to it for some reason. The Network Solutions used to run a lot of the domain names back in the 90s. You can kind of see their history here. I just want to show you really quick the connection between them and SAIC. They were purchased by them in 1995. Okay, that just gives you a little bit of the history here. I won't go into all this. But this article here says SAIC won't let go of Network Solutions. Science Applications International Corporation may have sent Network Solutions Inc. to the public market, but it didn't shorten the company's leash. Network Solutions, the Herndon, Virginia registrar of internet domain names and purchased by SAIC 2 years ago, made an eye-catching debut on the NASDAQ national market September 26th. More than 4 million shares changed hands that day, giving the company a one-day gain of 30% and a market value of $350 million. San Diego-based SAIC let the public buy 22% of Network Solutions through the initial public offering. SAIC spun off Network Solutions, but it does not want to let go of the work in progress yet. Success of Network Solutions is extremely important to SAIC because the systems integrator is using this offering as a test for future deals, said a source at Network Solutions. If this goes well, it could pave the way for other spin-offs from SAIC. Mike Daniels, Sector Vice President for SAIC and Network Solutions Chairman, said that SAIC has made an effort to move into the commercial markets over the past 5 years. So you can see they were really looking for dominance in the domain assignment, internet protocol, address assignment, that types of things. And then down here it says, having a monopoly on that market has given Network Solutions healthy growth over the past 2 years. With 1 million domain names registered, the company's revenue almost tripled to 18.9 million last year over 1995. But the future of that business is in question. The National Science Foundation said that it will not renew Network Solutions' exclusive contract when it expires in 6 months. Instead, domain name registration will become a competitive business
and new entrants in the market will undoubtedly undercut the company's registration fee, currently set at $100 for 2 years. So you can see there was a lot of, this is where it all kind of began. Kind of interesting coincidence. Their name is Gabe Batista. Not sure what that's about, but says with the direction of network solutions business up in the air, decisions made by SAIC are much more crucial. Sorry, my voice is really getting shot for some strange reason. Next article. The Untold Story of SAIC Network Solutions and the Rise of the Web. Even when the internet boom was happening, even during the incandescent gold rush years of late 90s, Network Solutions was not exactly a household corporate name. Not compared to the first wave of companies like America Online. So, you can see here a little bit of the history. Point is, I'm going to leave all these links here so you can kind of see SAIC's had a lot of history in managing internet domains, and they have the ability and all the internal knowledge to do reroutes if they so desire. Just putting that out there as a possibility that they have that capability. And then just wanted to point this out as an article from Vanity Fair that was from like 2007, where they talk about SAIC in relation to the founder, Bob Baester. And there's an interesting little excerpt down here that talks about the Young Boy Network. I'm going to leave this article for you, but you can kind of see that he used to travel with young guys and shared rooms with them. And they called them Baester's baby boys. And that it was part of traveling with Baester as the founder of SAIC. And this person is no longer with us, but this company has basically dominated the internet. And they split off and formed Leidos. Leidos has a lot of partnerships with Lockheed Martin. So if you notice, see, there's Bob Baester. That's who we found in this article earlier. I was telling you about Bob Baester's baby boys. Then, check out that logo. You can see they have a lot of connections right here. Booz Allen, Hamilton, Boeing. Connections of Thin Thread. But you never hear about their name. No one ever talks about SAIC. Excuse me, folks. This is very strange what's happening to my voice right now. So there you go, guys. It's interesting. This company. I'll have more on this tomorrow. Thanks. Hey everyone.
There's only a few minutes.
Just wanted to
but
give you a quick update on some research I'm doing regarding the telecom industry and things that kind of tie into the whole narrative involving incidental surveillance, things that potentially tie into this overall narrative and tied into InfraGard potentially. You have to understand, I have a very strong background in the wireless industry. I've been in the wireless industry, or I was rather, from 1994 until just last year, which was 2016. When I basically retired just because I could tell something was wrong and I wanted to research things like this in addition to other things that were going on in my life. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Basically, my research has been a very long path, and I've started to kind of piece a few things together. Again, I just want to point these things out because I think they're very relevant in evaluating what's going on right now. This is the website opensecrets.org. In the process of trying to do some research on Ericsson's lobbying agencies, I came upon this basically for 2016 that they'd hired these groups. And then I noticed that they had this subsidiary that they lobbied for called Telecordia Technologies. Now, I've been in the industry a long time, but I don't really remember ever coming across things involving Telecordia. So I wanted to find out who they were. So I looked them up on here. So I'll just read this really quick. It says Telecordia Technologies, Inc., doing business as iConnective, is an American subsidiary of the Swedish telecommunications company Ericsson. The company provides interconnection technology and clearinghouse solutions for numbering plan, routing, call billing, and technical standards coordination between competing telecommunication carriers. So just so you understand what that translates to is that they're basically the go-to in between for everybody to coordinate all of their numbers. You know, there's always like an eye that everything leads to, basically. Well, when it comes to, you know, basically how everything ties together in the United States, how you get your routing, everybody coordinates your number pools. All those things happens through apparently this subsidiary that's now owned by Ericsson. They do have an interesting history, though, that does tie into other aspects of the research. Now, I'm not going to get into their whole history. If you'd like to, you can read it. But the part that I find particularly interesting here is says a separation from the baby bells. In 1996, the company was provisionally acquired by Science Applications International Corporation. The sale was closed 1 year later following a regulatory approval process that covered all states individually. Since the divested company no longer had any ownership connection with the Bell regional companies, the name was officially changed to Telecordia Technologies. In 1999, the headquarters eventually moved to, I'm not sure how to say that. Stake in the company was subsequently sold in November 2004 to Providence Equity Partners and Warburg Pincus, who held equal stakes in the company. On June 14, 2011, Ericsson announced an agreement to acquire Telecordia for $1.15 billion. On January 12, 2012, Telecordia became a wholly owned subsidiary of Ericsson. Telecordia has been a major architect of the United States telecommunications system and has pioneered many services, including caller ID, call waiting, mobile number portability, and toll-free number 800s. Its expertise is managing large, complex projects across the operations and communication spectrum. Telcordia, I apologize. I have that problem. I do that with the word longitudinal. I always say longitudinal instead of longitudinal. You've probably noticed that if you see my other clips. Anyways, it says Telecordia offers products and services in the area of network planning and engineering, service assurance, delivery, fulfillment, and data management and operations support. Telecordia's software products are designed to solve communication problems, support complex, and this all rah-rah speech, doesn't it? Well, think about what this really translates to. So this Ericsson, everything kind of has to route through them. So when we talk about incidental surveillance, you really do have to look beyond just agencies. You have to look beyond NSA, FBI, CIA. You have to understand partnerships exist between all of our agencies and these companies. So Telecordia Technologies, that's basically Ericsson. Ericsson, just so you understand in context, they are the biggest, or one of the two biggest, rather, excuse me. I'm not connected right now, but they're one of the biggest telecom infrastructure manufacturers. So basically every single call you make on your cell phone is almost always going to route through some form of Ericsson equipment, whether it be on your phone or the other person's phone, because they have so much market share in the industry that their equipment is in almost every single tower. If they're not in a tower, they have small cells inside tall office buildings. Their technology is installed. They have these things called small cells that have very focused antennas that can be concealed in ceiling tiles and things of that nature. Not for nefarious purposes, of course, but they're designed to, they could be used for that. But I guess they're designed, though, to provide coverage like in office buildings, but if you want them to be out of the way so that they're not in, people don't see them and things like that. So they have these applications that are called concealed configurement, distributed antenna and systems that go inside office buildings or high rises, things of that nature. Most towers, buildings nowadays, especially in areas like New York, LA, the skyscrapers and things like that will usually have some form of these small cells that use a distributed antenna system that is usually some sort of type of fiber optic distributed. They call them DAS systems. Okay. So all I'm telling you is that Ericsson owns all these technologies. They basically have those core technologies and towers. They also have this company that does the routing. But what makes this more interesting is that SAIC actually, if you do research on them, and I'll get further into this in my next report, but SAIC owned a company back in 1995, and if I'm not mistaken, please don't quote me on this quite yet, but I believe it was called Internet Solutions, and they handled the IP and domain address handling, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a lot of concentrated power over telecommunications and our internet experience that has basically been in the control of two companies for quite some time. basically dating back to the mid-90s between Science Applications International Corporation, who's now, they've split off into Leidos. So sometimes the work they do is under Leidos, which is LEIDOS. And other times they do work as Science Applications International Corporation. It depends on what division you're working with as far as they go. I do know people who have been affiliated here that are with DOE now, just so you know. Anyways, that's what I can tell you about iConnective. Quite frankly, I'm pretty surprised about this myself. I did not know that they had all this. And if anybody else out there can verify this and see if I'm thinking along the same lines as you, great. Let's talk. Bye.
All right, guys. So again, those articles are about 3 or 4 years old, you know, so keep that in mind. The information could have been updated since then. In fact, it probably has. I probably should update them, to be honest with you. It's the more I think about it, guys, like time flies so fast within my universe that I'm not sure I should even have those same ones on the more I think about it. But historically, though, the information is still relevant. The reason why is because once groups like this get their influence within the organization, it's hard to get it out. That's all I'm trying to explain. They establish relationships at a contractor level, at a subcontractor level, where they just maintain their control just under different names and aliases and different types of relationships that stay close to the warehousing of phone numbers and close to the warehousing of internet protocol addresses and domain addresses. So you must understand this just to have a better understanding of just how perhaps in the dark we can be or could be within the United States relative to our own informational awareness and our own information control. We really, I think, sometimes perceive things as real that really just truly aren't. And I'm sorry sometimes that I'm the messenger of that, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, I have to be more conscientious about how that sometimes shatters people's perception of reality, and to be more conscientious, I guess you could say, about the impact of that. I try to be. I'm sometimes a little bit unapologetic about it in ways that maybe are perhaps too flippant. But I don't know. I think it's mostly because I feel like if I'm not that way, and it's nothing false, it's just that I feel like being my authentic self at that moment and not holding back when I talk about how ridiculous some of it is. It's just that I realized over time that in the process of doing that it really wounds certain people's egos, because they don't like hearing that their favorite person from whatever might not be real, you know. And that there's layers of sophistication now, folks. I mean, I would even say to anybody that's met me, just because I tell you somebody's real doesn't mean you should accept on faith because you met me that I'm telling you the truth. A lot of times the purpose of that, and this is not some confessional, just so you know, speaking to Lisa's point there, it wasn't like, this isn't the quote true confessional thing, okay? But no, what I'm saying to people though is generally like, I've had people do this to me where they introduce themselves to me and then they start to introduce me to like about a dozen characters that I know are just totally fiction and fake. And I go, oh, okay, I see what this is. This is the human intelligence to support the CGI, the computer generated image characters that they and their group are managing. And then they're going to try to get me to say like, yeah, these people are real. But again, that like when that happened to me was a couple years ago, and every single person that they were trying to get me to reinforce, I had already basically validated independently had been fiction, you know. So I knew something was wrong with that relationship right away, and I exited it, you know, as quickly as I could. But it was uncomfortable, you know, to have this happen repeatedly, where I'm trying to evaluate, is that person truly mistaken, or is this just a clever way of just trying to reintroduce me to a group of people that I just don't think are actually being sincere? I don't know, but you know, that's all right, guys. I mean, we can all differ on those types of things overall. What I'm asking for as far as working groups go is just that we're open to one another's opinions, that we're not going to say that it's my way or the highway individually. I know it seems like I can be that way, but it's really not. All I ever ask is that if somebody has a conflicting set of data to mine, to just please bring it to my attention. And you don't have to be respectful, but I prefer that, because I don't go out of my way necessarily in every case to be disrespect. In fact, in most cases, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the people involved. I really do like look deeper, like what could this be about? Why might this all exist? You know, but some of these things like that thing with the shooting in Portland, I mean, that company, guys, I found loose connections to people in my own family to that corporation. So it's even weirder when you learn that you had a former girlfriend, you know, that you spent significant time with that dated one of their main, you know, family members, you know, and they're filthy rich. So you got to ask yourself, guys, like at the time that, here's all I'm going to tell you about what a douchebag this person had to have been at the time that she, you know, made the decision to start dating me again, you know, and left him. I was making maybe like 60 grand a year. And this guy basically, that was probably like his drinking budget, you know, for a couple months. You know what I mean? Like it was like he got that in a trust fund, like $10,000 in a trust fund every month. And that would be enough to support two people in nearly any circumstance pretty comfortably. And that was just like scraping the surface as to what this guy had available to him monthly. And she still made the decision, you know, to go over to me sharing an apartment with this dude and living with me, you know, in that circumstance until I could afford to get us into an apartment of our own, you know. So I think that says a lot about her integrity, number one. So that's why I tend to like take a lot of her word into consideration. You know, I don't think that was done for confidence reasons, but you know, anyways, it's just something to say, you know, there's something that seems to be going on that's covering up a lot of these data sets. And so when I tell you guys that I think it's fake from my own perspective, it's not because I'm coming from some typical conspiracy theorist angle. It's because I literally do have information that I've researched in a very look, guys, it's intricate. My layer of information about what I just explained to you earlier, that corporation alone and the things that I know about certain members and the companies that they own, it is vast. It is such a huge catalog of information that I really just don't even know how to appropriately share it with anybody in a public way. I don't know how to do it. Everything that I find connected to it is just so damning and looks so bad that I don't think that there's a subtle way to even explain it. And then once I get past that, I go, okay, then how do I explain it? Because there is no subtle way. It just seems like it's so obvious and overt what's going on out there relative to this group of businesses and what the person's doing and what all kinds of people seem to know about, both in Hollywood. Yeah, it goes that deep. People in Hollywood send clues and hints that they know who's doing it too. And they're telling me that it is certain people that I'm talking about. And I can provide evidence to somebody privately that this is a fact, that what I'm telling you is not just like something that I'm making up in my mind or something like that. I will show you the very obvious data correlations, who's providing them and why they may be incentivized to do it. And it'll be compelling, I promise you. So just wanted to throw that out there, guys. It's crunch time. And if you're taking this seriously, let's get going, man. I think that I want this to be inspiring. I'm sorry I got a little upset, guys. I'm just processing some things going on with my family and, you know, feeling a little sad about that. And what I try to do is not stay stuck in sadness. I try to go like immediately into like, okay, I'm not going to stay there. I'm not going to stay anchored there. I can't be sad. What does it take to start over? How do I get to the next place? How do I get a new tribe? How do I begin again? And I'm just telling you, like, here's how we begin. It's with this sort of awareness and awakening. And I know how to do it in a way where we will have fun, where we will have a good time, and we'll get real problem solved in a real meaningful way. Because honestly, we need to be in a very positive mind state while we're doing this work, because it's what's required to energy balance all the areas these people are anchoring with trauma and rage. So on that note, folks, please keep your spirits up with me. Please send that loving vibration. I'm going to send it back to you. I appreciate all the love and support that you send me, both etherically and financially. All of it helps me. Thank you very much.